5, 4, 3. Hi, everybody. Dugroz here with Dugroz Reports. Welcome to my Saturday morning live stream. Today is Saturday, December the 6th, 2025, and I'm reporting live from my house. Good to see each and every one of you on board this morning. Let's do the roll call and see who is on board this morning. Tom Graber is the first to hop on board, and not only is Tom the first, he drops one Dugroz Reports membership. Celebrate. Thank you so much, Tom. That's just as good as a $3 super chat. If you are here and have not yet done so, click the thumbs up button. That makes the algorithm happy. DEM has arrived, and Matt Clausen. Studio TK also drops a super sticker for $1.49. Celebrate. Thank you, Studio TK. And my standard offer is on the table. Anybody who donates exactly $1.49, as shown on the screen, gets 1,000 Dugroz points. So there you go, Studio. 1,000 points. Thank you. Juan from MIA is here. Good to see you. Tom is saying hi. Furious Jason, good morning. And Spartan of Finance, glad to have you on board. All right, 20 people on board so far, and why delay any longer? Let's go ahead and start the same way I do every Saturday, and that is with Dugroz data points. This is anything around the world of points, miles, cash back, travel, whatever that I feel interesting, and I'll share those with you. First up is a somewhat personal data point. My Capital One offers in the Capital One app had an offer for 10 times the normal amount of miles at CVS Pharmacy. And this offer expires on the 8th, which is only 2 days from now, but go ahead and check your Capital One cards to see if you have that offer. Why not stop by CVS and get a gift card of some time? Only good up to $100 because the maximum additional miles is 1,000. And what I did is I went to CVS Pharmacy and bought an Amazon gift card with that. Now, I had something really weird happen. So if you notice that they've made a new type of Amazon gift card, they used to always be black, and there was like a sticker that you peeled off to see the code. Those worked great. Now it looks kind of like a brown paper bag or a shopping bag, and it doesn't have that sticker. It just peels off from the stuff that holds it in. And I had to black out a bunch of it, not to show the barcode or any confidential information, but the middle few digits, G5 something PF, yeah, the packaging actually tore off some of the characters, so I have no idea what it is. I went to the Amazon website, typed in a search for it, and it said, whatever you do, don't just guess at what the numbers are, because if you get too many wrong guesses, it'll lock you out of your account. Okay, you can either call us or do a chat. So I did a chat, and basically Amazon said, oh yeah, it's not that uncommon. Just give me the serial number, which is written under the barcode. Okay, so I did that. And then they asked me where I bought it, and I told them. And they said, keep all your receipts. You'll need to prove that you bought it. Someone from our email team will contact you within 3 to 5 business days. Well, that was on Wednesday, so it's been 2 full business days. No one has contacted me yet. So honestly, I'm a little nervous. I hope I didn't flush $100 down the drain just to, get 1,000 Capital One points extra. I guess it'd be 1,200 because it was on my Venture X, and I normally earn 2 points per dollar. So I don't want, $12 to $24 worth of value in exchange for losing $100. But surely Amazon has dealt with this before. Let me know. Have you ever dealt with this before? Had a gift card that got destroyed or damaged and you couldn't read it at Amazon? I mean, they're such a big place. They have to be, prepared for that and able to handle that. Right? Matt says, Liz says hi. Hi, Liz. How you doing? Yuri G is in Germany, flew SQF. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure what SQ is. You'll have to bring me up to date. Flying American back via Madrid and Dallas. Awesome. Yuri has those offers every month. Good. DEM picked up a $200 Walmart gift card through Rakuten and was able to snag 10x on that purchase. Solid. Carlos says, good morning, everyone. I love Capital One offers. DEM says at Walgreens. Yuri is also in favor of Walgreens. DEM 6+4 with the Rakuten card if you have it. Charles B says, sorry to hear Penn State is stealing your coach. Yeah. After he didn't get the Ohio State job when they picked others in the recent past, I thought he was staying for life. Nothing would have surprised me. I don't want to spend a lot of time on totally off-topic things because I know fewer viewers listen to that. But the one comment I will make is everyone has kind of thought all along, all of us diehard Iowa State football fans, our head coach, the football coach, Matt Campbell, will either stay for life or there's 3 teams he would definitely leave for. And then there's kind of like a second tier, kind of a Midwest Ohio guy. So like Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Michigan. Those are the 3 jobs that really scared us. And then the second tier was like Michigan State, Penn State, which is what happened. Maybe like, Minnesota if they threw a truckload of money at him in that second tier. And that's exactly what happened. I'm assuming Penn State brought in a dump truck filled with cash to his house and made him an offer he couldn't refuse. So, yeah, but we have Jimmy Rogers now, who I've never heard of. Anyway, I won't spend much time on that, but thank you for your sympathies. Studio TK says, Capital One kept sending me these offers for CVS over and over, got paid out for around 7 weeks in a row, then they simply stopped paying me out for 3 straight transactions. I'm sorry. It does say something like limit 1 every 30 days, at least on mine. D Green has arrived. JW Jack said, good morning, legend. I hope you're having a nice day. How you doing, JW? I don't know if we've met before or not, but sometimes it does this funny thing where it uses the long name instead of the short name. So if we have met, I apologize. If not, thanks for being on board. Yuri's hanging out in Dusseldorf, heading to Amsterdam a little later. John has arrived from John's Credit and Travel and Gifts. 1 Dugroz Reports membership. Celebrate. Thanks, John. That's just as good as $3. And just talking about some trips to Germany with Yuri and Dem. So let's move along here. Go to the next Dugroz data point, whatever that might be. You probably know I've been working on the sign-up bonus on the Marriott Bonvoy Boundless card. Pleased to announce I have now hit that. I think it was $4,000 was the minimum spend. And that earns me 3 free night awards with Marriott. Would have rather had the points, but that's the offer I got, and they wouldn't let me change it. So check. Another sign-up bonus attained. The whole reason I have this card is so that someday it can become the Ritz-Carlton. Fingers crossed. Let's go with a little bit of Chase news. So Chase has some sign-up bonuses. This mostly came out on December 1st, and my last live was on, I think, the 29th of November, so I didn't get to it. So let's update I said sign-up bonuses. What I meant was transfer bonuses. That came out wrong. Air Canada Aeroplan has up to a 25% bonus. This is helpful with the Aeroplan Caravan, but more on that in a moment. IHG 70%. Still less than a penny per point, so I'm not interested in that. And then Virgin Atlantic, 30%, I think until the end of the month. I don't remember exactly when these 2 end, but just keep an eye on your Chase login or on the app. Let's go into more detail on Air Canada Aeroplan, because that's the one that interests me the most. Get a 25% bonus on Aeroplan points when you transfer Chase Ultimate Rewards between November 24th and January 5th. If you transfer 74,000 points or less, you get a 15% bonus. If you transfer between 75 and 174,000, you get a 20% bonus. And if you transfer 175 or more, you get a 25% bonus. Now, this middle one, 20%, is kind of historically what they've done. They've never put a minimum threshold on it before. So I guess kind of bummed there's a minimum threshold on the low end. Excited there's a higher opportunity. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Now, some people have expressed this thought process. I want to make sure that Pay Yourself Back continues on the Aeroplan card into 2026. Excuse me, folks. I had a very minor procedure medically earlier this week. So I've got kind of this weird lump in my throat sensation. So if I pause and swallow more than usual or have to lower the tone of my voice, that's why. Sorry about that. 75 to 174,000 is the 20% bonus. That I will almost certainly do, but I might wait until somewhere between January 5th, 1st and 5th, just to make 100% sure. I'm like 95% sure Aeroplan will keep that pay yourself back, because all the language of like through December 31st doesn't appear anymore. I think we're just kind of conditioned to think it could end because it has in the past. Right now, it's just part of the normal terms and conditions of the card. So just like any credit card can change any feature, they have to give so much notice to avoid getting in trouble with the Federal Trade Commission and stuff. I think Aeroplan's in the same boat now. That's why I'm 95% sure. But if you want to be 100% sure, wait until January 1st and then do it. Or it may be January 2nd or whatever the first business day of the month is. I guess it'd be Friday, January 2nd would be the first business day of the month. 175 would be a stretch because that'd be almost all of my points. And transitioning into just more Ultimate Rewards in general. So I had the Chase Sapphire Reserve before all the recent changes, so I'm sort of grandfathered into CSR 1.0, kind of. There is a breakdown. You can find it in the app. It's a little hard to get to, that shows which of your Ultimate Rewards are eligible for 1.5 in the portal and which aren't. So I transferred, I think, 80,000 points to Hyatt to book that Dunes resort with Hyatt for the Charleston meetup next year on Labor Day weekend. Unfortunately, it pulled it out of my old points, so it must be first in, first out. So as I spend points, this goes away. So if I move points over to Aeroplan, there goes my 1.5 in the portal. Now, my thought process is, well, with Aeroplan, I'm getting 1.625 anyway, as long as I get that 20% bonus. And the way that works is 20% on the bonus, 10% on the card itself, as long as you transfer at least 50,000, which of course to transfer 75 you would. So that's 1.3 functional multiplier for the sign up transfer bonus. And then you redeem, you pay yourself back at 1.25. So 1.3 times 1.25 is 1.625. We should all have this formula memorized by now. And that beats 1.5 in the portal. So I think I'd be okay with doing it, but just two things I wanted to point out: the number of Ultimate Rewards I have. Now, my wife has a few. I think I could transfer over enough, a little over 25,000 to get up to 175 and then do the full thing. So that's one thing I wanted to point out, is just how many points I had. And the other is just how they've divvied up grandfathered points, non-grandfathered points. So it's kind of a bummer. I wish they'd just say that if you're grandfathered, you could use all your points until October of 2027. But it is what it is. So do I go all in and move 175,000 points over to Aeroplan just to have this massive pool? I can split between my wife and myself both, because we each have an Aeroplan card, and they do allow for points pooling within the family, which we have. So let's just say hypothetically I did the 175,000 and then times, I guess it'd be 1.35, since I'd get a 25% bonus plus the 10% automatic. That'd be 236,000 points, which is, still less than I might use in a year. And then let's see what that comes out to. 1.35 times 1.25, that would be 1.687 cents per point. So a little bit better on the way to use points on miscellaneous travel. Your thoughts? All right, before I move on to the next data point here, let's catch up on comments. 49 people on board. Keep on clicking the thumbs up button. That drives more people in. Philmo says, did somebody say sign-up bonus? I did. I said the wrong thing. I meant transfer bonus. New Again says, hooray, it's Dugroz reports time. Hi, all. Will they yeah, we kind of discussed that, didn't we? Gentleman Explorer is here and gifts 5 Dugroz reports memberships. Whoa, 5. Celebrate. Thank you, Gentleman Explorer. I really appreciate that. That's just as good as a $15 super chat. So good on you. Thank you for your patronage. Fleet Easily has arrived. Good morning, y'all. and responds to Studio TK that Capital One's offers are hit and miss for CVS. I get the 10 to 15x to work on my Venture X, but not my Quicksilver for some reason. Kevin Hawthorne's here and says, good morning from Lakeland, Florida. Yuri verifies my math of 1.6875 if you transfer the higher amount. New Again says, Doug, several videos came out trashing Chase after you ranked them first last Saturday. Perhaps take a moment and defend Chase's value proposition. It would make a good short, too, for the algorithm. All right. Well, I will do that right now and see what I can come up with just on the fly. Hey, all you Chase Hey, all you Chase haters, stop hating. Haters gonna hate. So my unique proposition about Chase is I'm doing mostly domestic travel. And I know Uncle Luke agrees with me, and many others do too. It's hard to argue the fact that for a primarily domestic traveler, where you're not getting the 8 cents per mile, the 10 cents per mile like you do on international business class flights, Chase comes out ahead. You got United, you got Hyatt, which should rank really highly. You've got either the 1.5 in the portal for now, or you've got the Aeroplan Caravan 1.625 if you implement that whole strategy. Now, I admit that it takes multiple cards and multiple steps to implement all that. But once you get the Caravan rolling, it just keeps going on its own. So there you go. My defense of Chase for me and my situation. If you're going to the Maldives on JAL business class, maybe that's not your strategy. But if you're just going to some waterfall in West Virginia, yep. Thanks, New Again. Filmo says, I love it when an Aeroplan comes together. Guy with the cigar in his mouth from the A-Team. I think his name was Murdoch. Don't quote me on that. A couple people saying hi to each other. Yuri G thinks American is better than United, but Southwest sometimes beats American. Yeah, that's another good point. You do have Southwest with Chase, which sometimes is a good deal. Not always. Fleet wants us to know there's a combo hack alert. AARP membership is on sale until December 9th for $15 a year. That's 1,200 miles for Capital One offers plus an $8 rebate on certain credit cards. I used Bank of America, so a $5 net. Yeah, how hard is it to cancel your membership? Good idea. I like the thought. Ian says, stupid FM podcast. I got lost. Good morning. Don't put down the FM guys too much. I like their podcast. This sounds weird. They used to release the podcast on Saturday mornings, but now they release it late in the day on Fridays. And I actually liked it better because I'm too tempted to listen on Fridays when I should wait until Saturday after this podcast is done. Where were we? Let's see. New Again. AA better than United. AA has the worst hard and soft products among the big three. Southwest will pass AA at this rate. Well, I think it depends on whether you're considering hard product or hackability. I do agree American is disappointing in their on-time rates. Their seats are fair to middling. I'm an intermittent traveler, so a lot of you guys have more experience than I do. In my limited experience, United is a little nicer and a little more reliable. I will give you that. But if you are a free agent out of Des Moines, you're generally going to find more deals, more ways of hacking American, more ways of earning lots of points on everyday spend through City than you will with United. DEM disagrees. Okay. Hannibal, not Murdoch. Hannibal loves it when a plan comes together. Thank you, Brian. Yuri kind of defends what I say. Rates are much better on AA. Main cabin extra pretty solid, says Dem. With good redemption rates, Delta is better but costlier. Yes. For a while, I thought I'm going to be a Delta guy. I'm going to make Delta my airline. But again, when you live in a small regional airport, sometimes they're just not an option. It's like, I want to go to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Well, if I'm going to fly Delta, I have to fly from Des Moines to Detroit, which is over here, then to Albuquerque, which is over here. And it'd be way better to go to, have a layover in Dallas or Phoenix instead. New Again says industry surveys disagree. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, New Again. From a normie point of view, I think of United, Delta, and American, probably American is the least favorable. But from a points hacking, min-maxing point of view, I think American is easier. Jimmy Duff says, hello, how you doing? It is subjective. Gentleman Explorer says, JetBlue main cabin extra legroom is greater than all other domestic, other than Delta. Well, I wish someday I'll fly JetBlue. I'll find a reason to, but they don't really have a lot of destinations coming out of the Midwest. Yuri had a bad experience with United. AARP tough to cancel? Asks Fleet. Question mark. I got it for travel discounts and 50% off frames at Lens Crafters. I don't know if it's hard to cancel or not. I'm always hesitant to sign up for something to save like $8 and then I'm stuck on a mailing list for the rest of my life. Hey, I see we have 61 people on board. Good job, guys. Keep on clicking that thumbs up button. That brings more people in here. Ian thinks America is really bad. As a Delta flyer, it's hard to enjoy it. My wife is a big fan of having a TV and not looking at her phone. I get that. Of course, it's subjective. People have spoken, and the FAA. Euro is flying Southwest almost exclusively when he lived near a hub, but now we don't have Southwest. It is coming in March, though, so I fly American all the time. Yeah, obviously, where you live has a huge factor in this. I'm going to kind of step away from the American versus United versus Delta debate just because I want to kind of, bring things back around. I'll put your comments on the screen. I just won't go into them. Ian says his wife is from Albuquerque, a very interesting place. As Bugs Bunny would say, I knew I missed that left toin at Albuquerque. All right, let's keep going here. What do I have? I need to expand my window just slightly so I don't leave anything out. Did I do this one? I can't tell. Let's take a quick look here. I did. Okay. Next Dugroz data point is personal in nature. So do you recognize this? Probably not, because it's just some generic condominium somewhere in the world, and it looks a lot like any other condominium. But this is actually a Vacasa, and if you've been under a rock for the last 3 months, you'll know that there was a partnership between Wyndham and Vacasa that worked great for me. Snap, that is now broken and completely destroyed. Vacasas are kind of like vacation rentals. Your last day to book it was this past Sunday, December 30th. Oops, November 30th. So it's too late now. And the last day to actually use it was January 31st. So on the very last day, I finally got around to it. Didn't realize Wyndham's Vacasa line closes at 6 p.m. on weekends, and I called like Saturday at 6:30. Oop, that didn't work. So I called back on the last day, and I asked the lady, is everybody calling today because it's the last day? And she was like, yeah, this completely monotone, I hate my job type of voice. Anyhow, she got the job done. I did book a Vacasa, and in case you're wondering, just a quick data point, even if your trip starts before January 31st, they wouldn't let you go past January 31st. So I literally booked a trip for roughly the last possible time in late January. A 2-day getaway for Mrs. Dugroz and I. We're hoping this works out. Our schedule's like 85% certain, but we're not there yet. It wasn't tremendous value. It was okay value. It was like 1.18 cents per point or something like that. So it's more just like, hey, the last chance to use Vacasa. I'm not going to tell you exactly where it is and the exact dates, so stay tuned for that. You will have to just find out. This is kind of like a teaser. The first joint rip trip, Mrs. Dugroz and I together. Let's see. Yuri passed Albuquerque a few times on I-40. Let's see. Jimmy has an opinion on different things. Yuri points out Ord is a AA hub. Yep. Spartan Finance says we need to get Doug over 3,000 subscribers by year end. Tell your friends. Hey, thanks, Spartan. I appreciate it. What am I at right now? Like 2,812 or something like that. I've actually got another benchmark coming up right around another 80 subscribers, and I'll clue you in on that when the time comes. But I do appreciate it. Thanks, Spartan. If you happen to wander in here and you're not subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it. I do a lot of travel hacking, points, miles stuff for the average American. I think you'll like it. Ian loves a double ripper. All right. A lot of comments on people debating American versus United versus Delta. And that's totally fine. But again, just for the sake of time, I won't read all of them. All right. Let's move on here. Dugroz data point on the Capital One Discover merger implications. You could say fiasco. Fiasco is probably too big of a word, like a mini fiasco. So last week I told y'all I went to an ATM at a small regional bank here in central Iowa. Not a very big bank. It only has probably less than 12 locations in the entire country. But I tried to use my Capital One debit card and they didn't take it because this particular ATM doesn't work on the Discover network or whatever sub network they own. I think it's either Plus or Pulse. I get those two mixed up. So I wasn't able to. And then right on here's the sign they had. They do take Plus. So Pulse must be the one that Discover owns. Right on the heels of that, I got an email from Capital One recently. It might have been a portal notification or a app notification, one of the two. I don't remember, but I went to the app and saw this. Capital One, your account ending in X. This is my Capital One debit card, which is now on the Discover network. Know before you go helpful information to save for your next trip. It gave some helpful tips for traveling with your new Capital One debit card, which is on the Discover network. Douglas, we want to make sure you have a seamless experience on your next trip. If you're traveling within the US, there's nothing you need to do. You can use your new card like usual, unless you go to that one particular ATM in the Des Moines area. If you're traveling internationally, here's a few things you can do to prepare. Research which payment methods are most common in your travel destination. Acceptance may vary from before. Why would that be? Do Visa and MasterCard have different acceptance rates than Discover? Check out these resources to help you plan and bring a second form of payment, cash or credit card, just in case. I don't know if this is landing with you guys the same way it's landing with me, but Capital One proactively sending out a message that says bring a second form of payment just in case, that's a little cringe in my opinion. I think probably what happened is some people had really bad experiences. Remember, not all of us, not most normies aren't like us where we're like, I've got more than 10 credit cards and I'm going to bring 5 of them on my trip just in case, a mix of Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. Most people might have their one card and their one backup. Imagine if you went overseas and that was the only ATM card you had with you and all of a sudden you found out Discover has really bad acceptance. So yeah, this really strikes me as a CYA. What do you think? Okay. Ian says, any year-end creator stats? I'm going to do a members-only video on that in the not-too-distant future. Thank you for reminding me. Yuri says, YouTube gave, I thought I said Dugroz. YouTube gave me a yearly recap, and Dugroz came out first for me, followed by Frequent Miler. Thanks, Yuri. I really appreciate that. Celebrate. Somebody else told me that recently. I think it was my benefactor, Mike Newland. And J.W. Jackson says, that's why it's called Discover. You get to discover if it's accepted or not. That earned a screenshot from me. That's a good one. Yeah, New Again agrees. Pardon me. Spartan says, yesterday I was deboarding the plane. They're handing out applications for that AA Platinum card from Citi. 80K points, 1K of spend, which is pretty sweet. Is that different or better than the public offer? Matt says, this is why Capital One shouldn't even bother with more products. The payment network is the new product that needs help. Yet maybe they're finally acknowledging they need help. The first step in solving a problem is admitting that you have one. Thanks, Matt. Yuri says, by the way, I used Player 2's AC pass from CSE on myself and no questions asked. CSE is City Strata Elite. I'm trying to think of what an AC pass is. Air Canada? You'll have to fill me in. I'm not really sure. D Green says the Discover Network stuff is a bunch about nothing for most of us. Time will tell, I guess. We'll find out. Obviously, if I'm traveling domestically, I don't use cash hardly ever, so it's really not an issue. In Puerto Rico, I left a couple cash tips. Admirals Club. Thank you, Yuri. That's what it means. Use your player 2's Admirals Club. Fleet says 2-1. City hates me, so I mostly ride AA using my Atmos points. I got you there. Sorry about that. Ian says, give me Admirals Club for 1,000, Alex. Admirals Club. Yep, thanks, Matt. Just more gray area activity. And Spartan says, public offer is 50,000 after 2,500. Okay, well, then the on-plane offer is way better. I was riding an American flight once, I think it was on the way home from Puerto Rico, and they said they had a special offer for us, and it was exactly the same as the public offer. And I felt like, I know more than you. Continuing down the road of Cap 1 here, I have the Savor now. Celebrate. I just wanted to point out the fact that they have a spending tracker, which I really appreciate. I have spent $184 of the $500 needed to get my $200 sub. Obviously, that'll be really easy to meet. I'm not even doing anything special on this. I'm just using it to pay for groceries and dining with those sign-up categories. So that's an easy one, but shame on you to anyone who doesn't have a sign-up bonus tracker. I don't think Amex does, at least for some things. Citi, it's been so long, I don't remember. Chase does, at least on my app. I can't speak for you. Chase does for personal cards, but not business cards, which is just weird. Continuing down the Capital One path, Capital One to rate transfer. Hat tip Doctor of Credit. I think they had a typo here. Capital One to reduce the transfer rate to Emirates down to 1,000 to 750. That's a 4-to-3 ratio. I didn't really have any interest in Emirates for the most part and using them before all this, but now my interest has gone from like a 3% down to like a 1% with Capital One. So we're actually talking about Capital One today. That's the theme of the day today. Time for my teaser. So we're going to talk about how Capital One fits into a portfolio of multiple cards, specifically mine, but I think this will be applicable to multiple people. And I'm just going to take a critical look at Capital One and say, is it worth using? Is it worth like integrating? Obviously, sign-up bonuses are worthwhile, but how does it fit? And we've got kind of a Lego theme, so it's like building blocks. We're going to put the pieces together and just see if Capital One has a good fit or not. And then rounding out our Capital One comments here for the Dugroz data points section, Capital One's lowest tier points and miles card is the Capital One Venture One. Hat tip Doctor of Credit. Right now, you can get a sign-up bonus of 40,000 points with $1,000 of spend. You also get a $100 portal coupon, which you can use for a year. That's pretty darn good. That's $500 of value, even if you just use like the travel eraser or penny points. $500 worth of value for $1,000 of spend. That's a 50% return on spend. And if you value those points worth more, it'd be even more. Now, the difficult thing is that Capital One has added family language to their venture line of cards. How much is it enforced? I don't know. Let me know if you have personal data points on that. But it's kind of like with Amex, you get the personal green, then you get the personal gold, then you get the personal platinum. Sorry about that. And if you don't do it that way, you can't get all three subs. Well, Venture now has the same thing. In a hypothetical world, you'd have to get the Venture 1 first, then the Venture X. I've already blown my shot because I have a Venture X. So now, whether or not this is enforced, are they going to pop you up? Are they going to say you only can get the 4 good credit version? I don't really know. This would be best suited to someone who's gotten into points and miles at least some, but has not yet dipped their toe into Capital One. An example would be my player 2, Mrs. Dugroz, has not had any Capital One cards. Well, I take that back. She has the Kohl's store credit card. She got that before we even got into points and miles, which used to be administered by someone else, but now it's administered by Capital One. So she was kind of grandfathered in. So I think she could still get this. And actually, that's such a good idea. I'm going to screenshot it here. I didn't know why I didn't think of that earlier. Thanks, Doug. You're welcome. I'll catch up on some comments now. Oh, man. All of a sudden, we hit a lot. Okay, that's good, though. Not any bad vibes about that. Ian wants to know if Matt has ever thought about work for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Well, a lot of people think he's a mole for either Rove or Wells Fargo, so could check out. 70 people on board. Thanks, everyone. Keep hitting thumbs up if you've not yet done so. If you're getting on board late, anyone who drops a super chat or super sticker that shows up as exactly $1.49, usually it's a super sticker, you get 1,000 Dugroz points. That helps feed the algorithm. I might as well take time to give my standard pitch at this point. I also have channel memberships. It's called a Dugroz Diehard. There's one and only one membership level. It's $3 a month. You can cancel anytime. Right now, I have over 60 members-only videos. Yes, 60. So if you want to sign up for a couple months, binge, and then dump it, you can. I won't be offended. You can also donate a channel membership, and that helps me out. Super chat, super sticker. Down in the description box is a link to the tip jar, which I need to pull up here. If you want to give anonymously, or you just want to give in a way where a higher percentage goes to me keeping it, because YouTube will take anywhere from 30 to 50%. The tip jar only takes around 5 to 7%, so I get to keep more. And no tax on tips. That's my understanding, at least. Different ways you can support my channel, and all of it is appreciated. Anything you donate, about 20% goes to my family budget. The rest is reinvested into my channel. Fleet says something on buying AA miles. I hear ya. Okay. Juan in the MIA says, City is a love-hate relationship for me, but it is the ecosystem I use for daily spend. It covers most of the categories. Yeah, I'm with you, Juan. As Cesar said, you are a City guy. Just admit it. I'm slowly transitioning my daily spend over to City. Yuri, as most of us know, is on his way to 12 custom caches. Wow, the last I heard was 10. So Bornador says, Amex Green does not have a tracker. How dare they? By the way, tell me where your avatar is from. It looks like a boat in a Caribbean island or the Maldives or something like that. Spartan says City has a track for the Strata Elite. That's good news. Yuri has 4 million thank you points. I'm not buying AA miles. 4 million points. Chase business cards have a spend tracker now. I have it now in my Ink Business Preferred 100K sub. That's weird because I just finished my sub less than a month ago and it didn't have it for me. Maybe it just doesn't like me. Matt says I can't work for something that doesn't exist anymore. I was under the impression, and we try not to get into politics here, so this is just a factual statement. I thought the Financial Protection Bureau still existed, just some of their enforcement efforts were defunded. Let's not go down that path. That really doesn't accomplish anything. Gentleman Explorer says, Amex has reliably given... My bad, Matt. I shouldn't have gone down that path. Amex has reliably given me sign-up bonus trackers, even on the checking account. Great. Matt says, this reduction of point transfer is going to become the norm thanks to Capital One and Amex. Don't like that trend. Don't like it at all. New Again says, I only have Venture X. I rarely use it. I mostly use it for car rentals. RIP the US bar. I'm 90% sure I'll close the Venture X after the refresh. I don't think there's a confirmed Venture X refresh, but we all know it's coming someday. Hold that thought for the main event. 79 people on board. If we can get up around 83 to 85, that would be awesome. This many people have clicked thumbs up, but there's this many on board. Somebody say that. Thank you. Let's see. Fleet says 2-1. Are you referring to the City CSP? If I can get out of the Velocity Doghouse, I've been considering picking up that card after I get the AA Platinum. It's not bad. New Again says Capital One offers is good, though, and has travel brands Rakuten don't have. I hear ya. Okay. Calderds is on board and wants to know, what are the Dugroz points transfer partners? The ones we have verified so far are Casey's, the gas station, Bennigan's, Tractor Supply Company, and Vicasa, but only in Iowa and West Virginia. We're still working on some others. We'll see how that goes. Or we haven't quite nailed down Casey's. We're not sure what the ratio is yet, so stay tuned there. Sleepy Rod knows that Dugroz do transfer to Bennigan's, but so far there's not been any bonuses. We're working on it. Juan in MIA says, I have City, Strata, Premier, 3 custom caches, AA Advantage Platinum. I will be product changing my AA mile up to a double cache. What's your confidence level they're going to let you make that product change, Juan? Because I've heard mixed data points. Some people said, like, they let me. Some people said they didn't let me. One person was like, they didn't let me in January, March, April, and May, but then in June they did. So it seems to be all over the place. J.W. Jackson says, I'm in the process of switching out my VentureX for a 1-key plus due to the lounge change. I typically get 10x or higher from a shopping portal for Expedia, then get the 1-key cache. I assume you mean in addition to the 1-key cache. I wasn't a huge fan of the 1-key plus. I just felt like the advertised value and the value you actually got for a plain Jane traveler like me wasn't there, but maybe I should have been more patient. Actually, my wife had the card. Maybe I should have been more patient. They would not let me product change it to anything else with Wells Fargo other than the new annual fee card. Fleet says, I use Capital One offers about 9 times more than Rakuten in my experience. Great rates. I knew what you meant. I gotcha. So Bornador says his avatar is San Blas in Panama. All right, Panama. That's the home of the Panama Canal, is my understanding. Too Easy says 16. I'm not sure what that's a reference to. I'm sorry. Carlos says, I got a Freedom Flex as my second chase card with a CSR being the original. 35K bonus for 500 spend. Wow, that's really good. I can easily double that with points boost or Hyatt transfer. Good points. Yuri says, everybody has reduced transfer ratios to Emirates. The reason I'm saying that voice is there's a Simpsons where like the kids are playing in band and it's like, Janie likes Millhouse. Somebody likes Ralph. Ralph likes so-and-so. And at the end, it's like, I don't know, but it ends with Millhouse. And the teacher's like, nobody likes Millhouse. So I don't know why that made me think everybody has reduced transfer rates. Hopefully you know what I'm referencing. Too Easy says switching to cash back. 16 switching to cash back. Okay. Maybe on January 16th. Let's see. New Again thinks that Capital One offers are better than Rakuten, but unfortunately the Capital One program is mediocre. You'd think they have one hook up. Hey, we're going to talk about that today. Stay tuned. And let's see. I'm going to have to push ahead with some of these comments here. I might show them, but I may not be able to take the time to mention them. Gentleman wants to know if I'm working on a Hy-Vee transfer partner. I wish. They're very selective. Just flying through some of these darn auto types. Sorry. Okay, the 16 was just a nothing. Okay. All right. Now I'm ready for the next data point here. Let's move right along. We finished our Capital One talk. Hey, it's time for one of my weekly features or semi-weekly or whenever I get around to it. And that is Dugroz Eats. So who wants to guess what I ate? Do 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 dong dong. This is a Mexican dish called flautas. Flautas. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce it, but that's what I'm going with. Juan or somebody else can help me out if I'm way off on the Spanish wording here. Flautas. It's basically like little tiny chimichangas, like burritos rolled up, deep fat fried. It doesn't always hit the spot, but it hit the spot this week. I'm not going to say the name of the restaurant because I don't want you to know exactly where I live, but it's in the Des Moines area, central Iowa. John is pretty confident that I ate food, and he was right. And then I've got a second Dugroz Eats here today. Anybody recognize this tasty treat right here? Yes, well, Thanksgiving was just a touch over a week ago, and everybody loves Thanksgiving leftovers. So this is my stuffing, mashed potato, turkey, and gravy sandwich. All of it microwaved except for the bread, because you don't want to get hard, put into a sandwich. sometimes it just hits the spot. Now, it is kind of bland. A little bit of salt helps. Salt and pepper helps with that. But if you're in the mood for just comfort food and savory, man, sometimes Thanksgiving leftovers are almost as good as Thanksgiving itself. Where were I? Juan lets us know that not sure of Fleet's velocity, but Citi, in his experience, is not as sensitive as other banks. To be safe, I would wait 90 days for targeting the Citi Strata Premier. I had a velocity issue once with Citi. You've heard me say many times I was declined for the double cash. And when I called in to the recon line, the rep basically said, no, it's a velocity thing. And she seemed to emphasize that velocity within Citi was a factor and overall velocity was also a factor. She's like, well, you just got a custom cash less than 6 months ago, Doug. JW Jackson says, One Key Plus is a great player 2 card. It's a 2x catch-all and gets 3x at Walmart, Target, GNC. Very happy with it so far. They added my $600 bonus before I paid my first statement. That's very cool. It was a good player 2 card in the sense of like 2x catch-all, yeah, 3x on grocery, gas, dining, and they do kind of let Walmart slide through as grocery. If I remember correctly, it worked Walmart in person, but not Walmart online pickup. That's just my memory, and it might vary store to store or something like that. The problem is you have to use it within One Key, and I don't travel enough to have like all these miscellaneous slush funds left over. When I've got all these credits and points that I want to use, I don't really want to go to One Key. In fact, the only place I've used it so far was a single night at a Sonesta on the outskirts of Washington Dulles on the way back from Europe last summer. Sleepy Rod has my back. He says there's 79 people watching, but only 29 likes. What's wrong with you people? The other 50 of you. Let's get on board. Isn't there a famous meme that's like, what's wrong with you people? Is that Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore? I might be off on that. I'm being silly, people, but I would really like it if you click thumbs up. Edgar says I said flautas correctly. Jacob says he's here. How you doing, Jacob? Good to see you. Congrats on the BB, which I just found out about. I'm a little behind schedule. I'm a few minutes behind, but if Capital One started switching their credit cards to Discover, it'll be rough for international travel. Amex is more accepted than Discover in my experience. Yeah, you've got 10 times the amount of experience that I have in international travel. Maybe that's underselling it. Maybe 20 times, 50 times, 73 times, whatever. Anyhow, yeah. Have you tried using Discover overseas before and had issues? Or you just pay attention to the signs on the ATMs and the businesses? Fleet's like, wait, One Key codes at Walmart as grocery? And he says, correct. My Amex Gold only codes 4x on neighborhood markets. What is JNC? I don't know. Ron Byrne is catching up. How you doing, Ron? Good to see you on board. Big time diehard and channel contributor. Had kids scuff this morning. What happened to the record player in the background? We started a new family tradition. Very observant, by the way. It used to be right over here, where we take the record player downstairs and listen to Christmas records. I've only got 3 so far. I need to get a few more. If anybody wants to donate, let me know. GNC is General Nutrition Center or something like that. They sell vitamins and supplements and things to get you ripped. Jimmy Duff is here and drops a super sticker of $4.99. I think you've already been here, Jimmy. I'm sorry, but that's awesome. Celebrate. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it. Juan wants me to know that flautas are basically chimichangas here in the U.S. Chimichangas is not recognized in Mexico. Flautas in Mexico are basically tacos. Well, hey, you learn something new every day. Yuri wants to replace his U.S. bar with a few Kroger cards, but they declined me so far. They told me I just got the U.S. Bank Altitude Connect. Good idea. Fleet's getting all excited for the One Key combo, booking on affiliate hotels, combo wombos with Capital One offers. There's your segue. Thank you. I'm not quite ready for the segue yet. By the way, we actually lost membership or viewership. We were in the high 70s, now in the low 70s. New again. As I said in early 2025, the game is resetting, going to see more points to valuation, transfer rates being adjusted, partners leaving programs. That's certainly plausible. Let's move on with the data points here. I've got about 2/3 of the way through. I've got a few more to go. Hat tip to Award Wallet. They're letting us know that thank you points are going to lose Aero Mexico rewards as a transfer partner Here's the timeline. I think it's like January 26th or something like that. I almost want to say who cares, but I'm sure there's someone out there that this matters for. Hey, that ties in almost perfectly to your comment there, New Again. Transfer rates being adjusted and partners leaving programs. There's a partner leaving the program. Congratulations. I earned 240 Chase bonus points by shopping at Best Buy back on the 2nd. There's a story that goes with this. I ordered a couple of iPads for my parents. Best Buy had a sale on iPads, and I was in a big hurry, so I didn't have a lot of time to look through different portals to see what offered the best rates. But Chase, in their shopping portal, it was supposed to be like 2x on everything, which was good enough. And like I said, I was in a really big hurry. I actually spent nearly $1,000. So I'm like, wait a minute, 2 times 1,000, that should be 2,000 points. I only got 240. Well, here's what happened is I got 2 iPads and 2 iPads holders, like, the thing that goes on the outside of your phone so that if you drop it, they gave me points on the holders, but not the iPads. And, it's one of those things you look in little teeny tiny print at the bottom, no points earned on these things. And Apple products was one of them. It's like, come on, man. So learn from my mistake. You don't get points on Apple products with Chase through Best Buy, apparently. Bum, 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 bum. Yuri says Aeromexico's useless. Yeah, I was going to say it almost doesn't matter. Amex is going 5-4 with Cathay. I think they already have. I might be wrong on that. Yuri says Chase policy of everything 1-to-1. That's why they lost Emirates. That makes sense. Bryjack Max says, I hope your folks aren't watching this. Christmas ruin. Probably. Yeah. As if my parents understand anything about what Chase points even are. Next data point, totally random here, but there's a local connection. This is according to, well, I'm not even sure where this screenshot's from, but it was sent to me by my good friend Mike Newland. A Delta plane slides off the icy runway in Des Moines as Midwest storm disrupts travel. So you don't hear about a lot of aviation incidents, but there was one just down the road from me, right here in Des Moines, Iowa. Mike said you should have run over there and taken pictures. This was the Saturday after Thanksgiving. It was in the middle of a snowstorm. Basically the plane landed fine, and normally it would taxi through, like, I don't know what you call it, but to get to the taxiway, they have these little offshoots from the runway. Those were all so covered in snow they couldn't be used, so I had to go all the way to the end of the runway, make like a 180-degree turn to get onto the taxiway. And even though it was just going normal taxiing speeds, I mean, this was during taxiing. This wasn't part of the landing. There was so much snow and ice, it just went like, and slid right off the end of the apron there. So it's just an honor for Des Moines to even be mentioned, I guess. King Sam Visuals. How you doing, King Sam? Apple is almost always excluded from portals. Airline portals for Apple directly and recent Capital One Best Buy offer didn't include Apple. So an airline portal for shopping at Apple doesn't include Apple products. How dumb is that? Calder says, yesterday, all Delta flights out of Des Moines were halted due to a network outage. Stupid network outage. Next Dugroz data point here. Hat tip Doctor of Credit. British Airways announces a rewards devaluation of around 10%. So basically, they've raised most of their award costs by about 10%. And I don't really have a lot to say about that other than that stinks. Remember I gave out the wet sock trophy 2 weeks ago? It is just a wet sock kind of year. Hat tip to 1 Mile at a Time, also known as OMAT. Some good news. There are 2 Plaza Premium Lounges coming to Dallas Fort Worth, including a swanky First Lounge. I get the impression like First is like a higher tier within Plaza Premium. Now, I think all the major Visa Infinite cards and equivalents have this with their version of Priority Pass, or in addition to Priority Pass. Most Plaza Premiums are international, so it's interesting that America's getting these. Someone's going to explain this better than me and give me the caveats. Not every Plaza Premium Lounge is included on your card, like the Capital One Venture X or the Chase Sapphire Reserve, but some of them are. So living in Des Moines, American Airlines has a hub in Dallas, and a lot of my travel goes through Dallas, both to and from Puerto Rico. That's what I had flying back from Pensacola, Florida, a couple years ago. Went through Dallas. I think on my way to New Orleans, I went through Dallas, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, that might benefit me. Mike, hey, you must have had your ears burning and heard me. I told you about I mentioned that you gave the data point about the Delta flight going off the runway there. But Mike drops 20 Dugroz Reports memberships. That's just as good as a $60 super chat. Celebrate. Miles of smiles indeed. Thank you so much, Mike. I really, really appreciate your patronage. Jacob celebrates. Absolutely. Calderd's got a membership from Mike. Yuri says, I went to a Plaza Premium in Dallas Fort Worth, pretty small, and the food was not good at all. The ones that already existed or the new ones already there? Mike gives a fist bump to those guys. And Sleepy Rod says, celebrate. Kugelos style. Kugelos loves to celebrate. Hello, I am Kugelos, the Spanish-speaking Dugroz equivalent. Matthew Smith says, thanks for the gift of membership, Mike. And Yuri G says, the old Plaza Premium. Gotcha. Next data point here. Mesa, the credit card Mesa that does like mortgages, adds Omni Hotels as a transfer partner. Hat tip to both Doctor of Credit and Matt Clausen. Matt had a video where he explained what this means. Frequent Miler did too. Lots of people did, but the one I learned about it on was Matt's channel. Subscribe if you're not already a part. 30,000 points gets you a free night. So it's kind of like 30,000 points on Mesa becomes 100 points over at Omni, but 100 points is the exact amount you need to get a free night. And the way I understand it is Omni doesn't have any award chart or dynamic pricing. It's just free night. You're either blacked out or you're not. So if you can find a suite that costs $1,000 that's available, free night. And, you get lots of value per point, more than 3 cents per point. If you find a $300 hotel room somewhere in a roadside hotel, great, you got a penny per point. So this is one of those things where it could be tremendous value or it could be really bad value depending on the room you book. Because Omni is not huge and not huge in our community, there's not a lot of data points so far, but hopefully we'll get some as we go. Cogito, ergo sum, she, her, says, thank you, Mike. Much appreciated. Absolutely. J.W. Jackson says, I like Omni Hotels. I wish Capital or Wells Fargo would go to this partner. My speculation would be Mesa points are kind of hard to earn because you can only get through your mortgage or those limited categories. So I'm wondering if Omni was thinking this is a good experimental ground to make sure we don't have the crap hacked out of us. If Capital One or Wells Fargo or Chase or American Express got them, or Citi, I have a feeling there'd be a truckload of people booking those $1,000 suites and they'd have to make some quick changes. New Again says, IAG Avios permanently raised points needed 50% earlier in the year on my routes to Europe. IAG, is that Iberia Air Group? I think it is, yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. Yuri has close to 2,000 Mesa points. Mesa's a great card. But don't you own like 3 or 4 houses and rent them out, Yuri? So you've got a situation that most of us don't have. A lot of great categories. I earn a lot of Mesa points every month. Absolutely. Plus, Yuri is big on strategery, is my understanding. Last data point of the day, last regular data point of the day here. Hat tip to Dr. Crane over on one of the Discords. I think this was the Stack Your Points Discord. Hat tip to them. The Redstone Federal Credit Union Visa signature is becoming almost gone. And then when I go over there, somebody said this: the Redstone Federal Credit Union Visa signature is becoming almost like a clone of the Citi Custom Cash, but actually maybe better for many people. Now, the person who posted this later deleted it, but the comments remain. And somebody named Adaptation Creation says, this isn't better. They nerfed the card again. This sucks. Basically, it's becoming like you get 5x points on one category per month, similar to the custom cash. And I agree, it's not becoming better, because before it was like 5% cash back on, was it groceries or gas, and then 3x on other things, 1.5 on everything else. It was like the perfect player 2 card. I was going to have player 2 sign up. I missed it by like 2 weeks when they geofenced it. So now I don't feel as bad as missing out because it's going to be nerfed. If you already have it, you might keep it. It's kind of like, another 5% rotating category type card, although it's more like the US Bank Cash Plus, 5% on one thing that you pick. I don't have the details on what you pick yet, but I don't know that I'd rush out and get it. It's no better than like a Discover card at this point. Yuri confirms Redstone was 5% on groceries and gas. Do you have it, Yuri? What a bummer of a nerf that is. You can only apply for it if you live in Tennessee or Alabama, is my understanding. Yuri confirms he does have a couple rental houses, but doesn't pay any mortgage or rent. Okay, I was a little off there. He must get all his points through strategy then. QC Man gifts a Dugroz Reports membership. Thank you so much, QC Man. Celebrate. Just as good as a super chat of $3. Hey, 83 people on board. Look at that. We're growing slightly. Did I already say this? IEG owns Iberia, Aer Lingus, British, and Vueling. Okay, gotcha. Yuri corrects himself. Restaurants and gas. Okay, that sounds more like what I was expecting. Redstone card was the card that got away. Well, that also shows us here in the game of points and miles, things are always changing. And make hay while the sun shines, man. If you find a card that's perfect for you, even if it's only good for 2 years, make hay. Take it while you can. I said that was the last regular data point. I misspoke. I apologize. That's not correct. I've got 3 more here. Hat tip to Doctor of Credit again. The Bank of America Sonesta card is going to be discontinued. So again, speaking of the one that got away, or just things being devalued and just this being a crappy year in points and miles, didn't affect me personally, but I do remember Frequent Miler did an episode 6 months to a year ago, Don't Siesta on Sonesta. And although there's not a way to get a lot of points on an ongoing basis, the sign-up bonus on this card was great. I think it was 125,000 points, and you could use that for some pretty epic value. In the comment section on Doctor of Credit, there was some people that were like really bummed because they had a good use case for Sonesta and are just kind of mad the card's going away. If you have this card and you don't close it, it will automatically be converted into one of Bank of America's own cards. I don't remember which one. So there's another bummer type devaluation thing. This data point is courtesy of Lil Roscoe 1000, who put a comment on one of my recent videos. Data point, I recently used my Wells Fargo autograph journey to purchase an American Airlines e-gift card. The $50 annual statement credit with a $50 minimum airline purchase was applied. I didn't know this could work. I'll do this every anniversary year. And I said, that is good data. Thanks. So if you don't know, the Wells Fargo autograph journey is the $95 or $99 a year Wells Fargo card that's sort of like a hyped up version of the autograph, although there are pros and cons. To help offset that annual fee, you get a $50 airline credit every year. And apparently you can just straight up buy e-gift cards on American Airlines and trigger that. You have to buy at least $50 worth. So thank you, Lil Roscoe. I appreciate it. QC Man says, Redstone version 1.0 was too good to be true. I'm sure the pre-geofence optimizers cleaned up for years. Yeah. New Again says, don't fall in love with the banker program. Get the subs, earn and burn. Best strategy. I agree with you. I think there can also be a piece of daily spend. Like, let's say 5 years from now, Citi and American Airlines get a divorce. Well, if you have a ton of everyday spend or you do strategy on your custom caches, get a whole bunch of American Airline miles before that partnership ends, you got good while the getting was good. Now, here's my last regular data point. Opening today, although this was posted by Doctor of Credit, hat tip to them, a few days ago, but open now, Chase has opened a Sapphire Lounge in Las Vegas's Harry Reid International Airport, LAS. I heard some people say it's a very small lounge. I can't really comment on that because I didn't read a lot of details, but I am at least hypothetically excited. I can fly Allegiant Airlines directly to Las Vegas. So when I came home from there, if for some reason I needed to do that, maybe I can go see the Hoover Dam again. By the way, you can use the Aeroplan card to pay yourself back on the Hoover Dam or the Hoover Dam parking lot, both. And you could do the same thing on your Allegiant Airlines travel. I can now do that. Probably won't, but hypothetically, I could. JW Jackson says, I value my time and customer service experience. The city's customer service is the main reason I avoid them. I can't argue with you there. I have a whole video called like the famous epically bad call. D Green says capacity for the Las Vegas Sapphire Lounge is only 87 people. Expect a really long wait. 87 people? I thought the San Juan, Puerto Rico Priority Pass Lounge was bad. Makes that look spacious. All right, where are we at here? We are done with the Dugroz data point. So it's time to get into the main event. But before I get into the main event, nature's calling me. So you know what that means. It's time for the biology break, also known as intermission. So what you folks are going to do is listen to some very delightful copyright-free music while I go to the bathroom. Should only take 2 minutes. I'll be back. I've never tried acoustic cinema, so let's do that. Please stay on board. Make some random comments. Let's see. What would be topical today? We're talking about Capital One, sort of like building blocks and Legos. What is your all-time favorite Lego type or Lego set? Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be back. Almost back. Oh, hey, you guys are the best. Look at that. I'm up to 90 people. Oh, 89 people on board. Thanks for hanging in there. All right, let me catch up on comments here before. Let's see. JW Jackson says the new Wally Lego set is fire. Awesome. Fleet says, my son likes Picasso tiles, so I've been out of the Lego game. I don't know what Picasso tiles are. I mean, I can imagine it's some sort of building thing that looks like Pablo Picasso. D Green says the Mandalorian helmet was my most recent Lego set. Fun build. JW Jack says, I got some 24X Amex on Legos. Whoa. During Cyber Monday using my Rakuten. All right, well, I'll add mine. So I've got two. One is like hypothetical favorite, and the other is what I actually owned. In terms of actually owned, when I was like 11 or 12, I got El Dorado Fortress for either Christmas or my birthday. It was in the pirate set, and this is where the good guys lived, like the British soldiers, or I don't think it ever specifically said they were British, but they seemed British to me with funny tall hats. It was a fortress in the middle of the ocean built out on like a pier. And then my hypothetical favorite was, okay, so if you go way back in time, we're talking like late 70s, early 80s, the first Lego castle was just called Castle. And I think it had yellow walls. But right around the time I was 5, 6, 7, probably mid 80s, they came out with two other castles. There was Knight's Castle and King's Castle. Knight's Castle was the smaller, less good one. King's Castle was the big, awesome one. Of course, my family being very stingy got me the Knight's Castle, which was cool, but I'd always wanted the King's Castle and never got it. So I'm totally bummed. If anybody wants to research if the King's Castle still exists, if you can buy it and post it here, let me know. I want to know how much it costs. Sona Bodor says the Dallas-Fort Worth Party Pass is small as well as the one in Querétaro, Mexico, about 20 people. What? 20 people? I've actually been in the Dallas Party Pass. Just for the sake of comparison, I went to the Capital One Lounge and the Party Pass Lounge. Capital One blows it out of water. JW also says there's a new company selling retired Lego sets called Affordable Bricks. Prices are good. Not sure how legit, though. Bryjack says some great 3-in-1 creator castle sets. Okay, Brian, you know what I'm talking about. I know you do. What is the closest current equivalent from Lego, not the off-brand company, to the King's Castle? Help me out here. I know you got this. Maybe I can use some funds for that. Some YouTube funds. Nobody's dropped a tip jar tip yet, so let's keep going. All right, you know what time it is. It's time for the theme of the day. Today's theme of the day is Capital One. Where does it fit? So let's go ahead and make this full screen and then dive in 5, 4, 3. Capital One, where does it fit? So this is kind of a Lego or building block theme. If you think of an ecosystem as a whole, like all the different parts, whatever you have has to fit together. There has to be a good fitment there in terms of like, what am I trying to say? I'm not coming up with what I'm trying to say here. Don't just get cards for the sake of getting cards. Actually use them. I want to, here we go. Okay, get my whiteboard from Rich with Points pulled up here. So let's take a look at my portfolio. Hat tip to Rich from Rich with Points. So here's what my portfolio of cards looks like right now. Let me see if I can resize this to make it a little more appropriate. How does that look? That's better. Okay. So I'm not going to go over everything, but whoops, put that back. Actually, this isn't my portfolio right now. This is, there's my portfolio right now. Okay. This is what it is right now. Over here, you can see there's a Capital One Venture X, there's a Capital One Savor, and a Capital One Venture One. I've told this story before, but I'll very briefly tell it again. My Capital One Venture X actually started its life in the year 2000. It's my oldest credit card, and his name is Carl. Later on, I signed up for a Venture X and got the 100,000 point welcome offer. And about a year ago, they flip-flopped. This one's name is Timmy. So I product changed Carl to the Venture X. I changed Timmy from the Venture X to the Venture One because I want my card that I'm going to keep to be my oldest card. Timmy really doesn't serve any purpose at this point. I could just cancel him. I'm kind of debating if there's any reason to keep it around. Probably not. I'll probably just cancel it. And then I'd been wanting to get a Savor for a long time. I wanted to upgrade Timmy too. a Savor, but they just never let me. So eventually a miracle happened about 2 months ago. I applied for the Savor and got approved with a welcome bonus. So the Savor is now part of the Capital One family. His name is Lenny. So we have Carl and Lenny being my 2 Capital One cards. And when you look at the whole portfolio here, you'll see I do have the Capital One Duo, and that's really nice because I get 2x on everything. I get 3x on grocery, dining, and entertainment. And neither of them has a foreign transaction fee. So they make a good pair if I'm traveling, if I just want to KISS, keep it simple, stupid. But in terms of mixing everything into my daily spend and my overall portfolio, it just feels like a really little piece. And I've got other cards that do very similar things. So now I'm just going to say, how does Capital One fit? And does it have a place, or at least like a good place in my wallet? So, brief comments here. Filmo says, I've never purchased a single Lego brick. I hear they are fun to step on, though. They are. DEM says Lego's therapy for adults. What's that line from the Lego movie? These aren't toys. It's an advanced building system. Most think they're primarily for children. Okay, Brian Jack says, Lego create a 3-in-1 medieval horse knight castle. Reasonably priced, multiple bills, isn't $300 plus. Tell me the exact price, or pretty close to the exact price. I want to know. Filma just pays as a regular therapist, but she does take Amex, so it's cool. Or whatever sign-up bonus you're working on. Am I right? Am I right? Fleet Easily says, the year 2000, we are robots. In the year 2000. So, Capital One, we looked at my portfolio and we saw what it had there. So, here's what I have, the duo, Carl and Lenny. And I mentioned what they do, and it's pretty good, but we have to dig deeper. Just saying 2x on this, 3x on this is useless if you don't have a plan for how you're going to use those points. So where does it fit overall? Young man wants to know, and I do too. So first of all, one thing Capital One has on their venture cards is the travel eraser. And the travel eraser is kind of meh. By the way, do any of you remember doing this with your pencil in elementary school where like, oh, it looks like rubber when you go up and down? So you probably already know this, but I'll mention it just in case you don't know. Your Savor cash back can be moved over to any venture card, including the Venture X, just at your, penny per point ratio. So if you have $25 worth of rewards, that becomes 25 venture points, and then you can subsequently erase it for a penny per point. So on your venture cards, there's really no way to cash out, but if you buy any kind of travel, you have 90 days after the purchase post to just wipe it out at a penny per point. That's pretty meh. That's not very exciting. I've talked about the joy of 1.5 before, where you want to get around 1.5 cents per point for that general travel, like what the US Bank Altitude Reserve was until fairly recently. What the Sapphire Reserve at Chase was, unless you're grandfathered, until pretty recently. What the Aeroplan Trick I love to talk about does. The Amex Business Platinum, but only on your one chosen airline, 1.53. Capital One doesn't have anything like the joy of 1.5, and that's why I say it's meh. I mean, you're getting the minimum, but you're not getting the maximum. Catching up on comments here. Brian lets us know that the Castle thing is $129. That's the manufacturer's suggested retail price. Jacob says, Rich's whiteboard is great. I'm learning more about my setup by using it. Absolutely. I love it. If you're watching, Rich, hi, thank you. All right. I'm calling it right now. If I can, Brian said that the new castle set from Lego is $129. If I can get a total of $129 worth of donations from this point forward, not retroactively, in this live stream, I will buy the castle and set it up in the background for some of my future live streams. $129. That's it. Brian, you can be the one who keeps track, or somebody can. Filmo says, I like the idea of giving my card's name, but I can't even remember my kid's name, so I'll stick with orange card or blue card with swishy stripes. If you had the Golden Ponies card, you would remember that one. Yuri points out that the City Strata Premier also lost 1.25 cents per point. Or maybe he's talking about the Chase Sapphire Preferred. They both did, so it doesn't matter which way you're talking about. They both lost. Ian says, thank you for the data, and gives $1.99. Celebrate. Hey, there we go. We're $2 into our journey to get in the castle. I'll count tip jar tips also. But let's keep on presenting here. So the Travel Eraser is pretty meh. It's not really that exciting for me. All right, let's talk about the portal now. Again, hat tip to Rich with Points. I took the idea from him. So in the Capital One portal, if you make purchases, rental cars and hotels get you 10 points per dollar. This is with the Venture X, which is pretty good. And then airfare and other travel, like general travel, gets you 5x. So I'm assuming general travel, I know there's activities in their portal. And they also have vacation rentals, which I actually did one of those. We're staying in this coming December, not for any of my personal travel. This was for visiting family members. Somebody else paid for, well, actually we split the cost, so I'm not paying for all of it. So that's okay, I guess. It's not that exciting. This is not the exact one I got, but it's similar to this. So here's a vacation rental, and you earn 5x on those. Unfortunately, they don't classify their vacation rentals as hotels. It's just like renting a whole house, for a certain number of days, those kind of things. And what I noticed is that the one we got in Arizona actually was not available on Airbnb. It was not available on Vacasa. So whether it's available on other platforms, I don't know, but at least there's some uniqueness to that. So I guess using it for vacation rentals could be good. But again, where are the points coming from? I've got to earn them somehow. And, the earnings are not all that unique. I'll get to that in just a few moments. Not a few moments, but a little bit down the road. Catching up on comments here. Background Balloon has arrived. How you doing, Background Balloon? Thanks for being a diehard. QC Man drops another $2 in the Lego Fund. Thank you. Celebrate. Did I celebrate you, Ian? Celebrate. There we go. Ian gives another $1.99. Celebrate. Awesome. So we're up to $246 so far. Rami Morrison, 5420 says, first Dugroz live. Excellent. Glad to meet you, Rami. Thanks for being on board. Happy to have you today. QC Man says, I think they have car rentals in the portal as well. Yes, they do. Did I forget to mention that? If I did, I apologize. Let me go back to my portal graphic here. There it is. Yep, car rentals in the portal do earn 10x, and I've used that before. In fact, I think the first 2 years I had it, car rentals are what I used to get the coupon they give you back, the $300 coupon. Travel portal. All right, let's go ahead and keep on moving on here. So let's talk about transfer partners. So if you're not going to use the Travel Eraser, pretty much the only other way to get value is through their transfer partners. Now, obviously, if it's the Savor, you can take it as cash back. But any of the venture cards, it's going to be transfer partners. Airlines first. And Capital One has Air Canada, Avianca, Ava Air at 2 to 1.5, Singapore, TAP Air Portugal, Turkish, Aero Mexico, Virgin, Cathay Pacific, Japan Airlines, and that's at 2 to 1.5, unless otherwise indicated, they're 1 to 1. Qantas, Finnair, British Airlines, Emirates, and Etihad. So there's the airline transfer partners. all of them. I'm going to break this down a little more in a digestible way with logos and stuff in just a few moments, but bear with me. We also need to go over the, oops, I'm sorry. I forgot JetBlue at 5-3, massive eye roll. Let's go over the hotels. So the hotel transfer partners are Choice at 1-1, Wyndham, ALL, which is Accor Live Limitless, at 2-1, and I prefer at 1-2. So those four. All right. Before we break these down a little more, I'll catch up on comments quickly here. Brian gives $1.99 to Lego the Lego. Celebrate. Thank you. So now we're up to $8. 129. We've only got 120-ish to go. Jimmy Duff says, mine rocks. What a generous guy. Oh, I'm sorry. Mike rocks. What a generous guy. Yes, thank you. QC wants to know if you used your $300 credit on the house rental this year. I did. And it's one of those things where that was almost just like cash for me since people are reimbursing me for part of it. Basically, my portion came out to this many dollars and I just used the coupon on it. So since money is fungible, $300 or $300 less that I had to write a check for saves me $300. So it's sort of like cashing out. So that money went into my travel savings account since that was family related, not travel related. New Again says, amazing Capital One couldn't negotiate JetBlue at 1-1. Simply amazing. Turd. Yuri says, Capital One transfer partners are worse than Wells Fargo. At least Wells Fargo has Choice at 1-2. I'm not going to disagree with you, at least not so far, but that's what we're here to discuss. So let's keep on discussing it. All right, so I'm going to talk about transfer partners, some of which are unique, some of which are semi-unique, and some of which are something worse than that. By the way, I do have some new photos of myself. I actually had a semi-professional photo shoot about a month and a half ago, and I'm starting to get those pictures now. So got some new photos if you're wondering where these are coming from here. How do I classify unique transfer partners? I don't count Built, Mesa, or Rove for now because I don't play in the sandblocks of Mesa or Rove at all yet. I might someday. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. Not there's anything wrong with that, but I don't even use them. I have a Built account, but I just don't get a lot of value from it. I don't think I shop online at the kind of places that trigger a lot of shopping portals. Like I know I talked about Best Buy earlier. That's like a once every 5-year purchase for me. Most of our shopping's at like Walmart or Dollar General or stuff like that. I don't buy things on Walgreens online or Macy's. So you can count them, but I'm doing this for me. This is how I value Capital One. I'm not going to count Built, Mesa, or Rove, at least for the time being. A fully unique transfer partner would be someone that no one else has. So if there's a transfer partner that is only part of Capital One, and we're talking about the big five, Capital One, Chase, Amex, Wells Fargo, and Citi. So if Capital One's the only one on there, I'm going to call it fully unique. I will call it semi-unique if there's one other issuer. So if it's Capital One plus someone else, that's semi-unique, or I could call it uncommon, I suppose. If there's 2 or more other issuers, so Capital One plus 2 others, 3 total, I'm going to call that a promiscuous transfer partner. It really gets around. Naughty. So with that in mind, there are 3 fully unique transfer partners for Capital One, and those are TAP Air Portugal, Finnair, and Japan Airlines amongst the big 5. So, couple comments on this. First, TAP. I don't know of a reason to care. Somebody will probably tell me there's some amazing use case or arbitrage where you can use TAP with some other partner. I haven't run across it. I haven't heard it talked about much. Let's face it, every possible airline has some obscure sweet spot. If you're flying from Cuba to Uruguay, that's really good on this one airline booked through a completely different airline. But in terms of like broad applicability, I haven't seen a lot of amazing things on TAP. I've seen a few situations on like points.me where you can fly from like New York to Portugal itself on tap for a pretty reasonable amount of points, but I'm mostly a domestic traveler, so there's just not all that much I'm concerned about. Finnair, it's an Avios, so while it's technically unique, there's really no significant advantage out there. If I can transfer to British or Aer Lingus or one of the other, I think it's Qatar is also an Avios now, I can backdoor into Finnair. So technically it's unique, but it's not functionally unique. There's no real advantage. And then what I'm saying is for TAP and Finnair, I'm not even really going to take them into account. They're just not exciting enough for me to even consider as part of the equation. With Japan Airline, it's kind of lame that their transfer ratio is 2 to 1.5. Now, this is a newer transfer partner, but I could be okay with it if there was a transfer bonus. They had one when it first linked up that got it to like 2 to 1.99, where it was almost 1 to 1. There was an episode of Frequent Miler a couple months ago, 3 months ago, when Capital One first brought on Japan Airlines, where Nick did some research and found a few sweet spots. There was one going from like North America to South America. I don't remember what it was. I think that was on Latam. But one example he said is even though they're part of two different alliances, they are a transfer partner with Air France and Flying Blue, KLM Flying Blue. And he said one example is you could fly from New York City to Paris on Air France for 60,000 points with no surcharges. You're just paying like the $50 or $60 in taxes, which is way less than Flying Blue itself or Virgin on Flying Blue or something like that. So that could be a sweet spot. It's a little lame with the bad transfer ratio, but at least Japan Airlines interests me a little bit. So tuck that away and I'll come back to that later. 73 people on board. Keep on clicking the thumbs up button and we'll see what we got going. Oh boy, I missed a whole bunch of comments here. Doggone it. Okay, so we talked about how Capital One can't even negotiate JetBlue at 1 to 1. And Yuri mentioned at least Wells Fargo's choice at 1 to 2. New again adds Wells Fargo is greater than Capital One. And adding to that argument, QC Man mentions that Wells Fargo's JetBlue at 1 to 1. So Wells Fargo out negotiated Capital One on that. Yuri says Citi also has JetBlue at 1 to 1. Sleepy points out Wells points are hard to earn though. No crazy multipliers on Wells Fargo shopping portal of such. That's true. I probably should have taken more of the shopping portal into consideration. I didn't really, even though I mentioned it in the Dugroz data points. Yuri G says, yes, 3x maximum is rather pathetic. The Critical Chris, I don't think we've met. I like your avatar, huge cheeseburger fan, says this. I use 2 annual fee Citi custom cash MasterCards to get a 5% back on travel that I can buy on any sales platform. Yes, the dollar amount caps out. That checks out. Thank you. Matt says, Capital One, the discount city of transfer points. You kind of know where I'm going there, don't you, Matt? New again says, I say that because if I had to be stuck with only Wells Fargo Capital One, Wells Fargo, no second thought needed. Some people saying hi to each other. Yuri points out Finnair is an Avios. Yep. Matt says, I just made myself an AI caricature. I've made peace with it. Promoting Wells Fargo again, are we, Matt? Tio is here. How you doing, Tio? Starlux only has Alaska Atmos. Okay. A lot of people saying hi to each other. Hey, Vincent, how you doing? Glad to see you on board. Yuri thinks Finnair actually has pretty good rates. No argument there, but like I said, you can backdoor in through any Avios. Doesn't have to be them. QC Man says, Customs will have a few questions on that Cuba to Uruguay flight when you finally get back to Iowa. You think? Let's see. New again says, the lack of Avios options is why I have Citi behind Chase and Amex. And Wells Fargo is very close to being ranked higher than Citi. Ian says, JAL is nice because they pretty much always have availability. It costs more money, but there's something to be said about getting a guaranteed date you want. Who doesn't love a guaranteed date? Thanks, Ian. And Sleepy Rod says, a 2-all catch-all times a 0.75 transfer ratio is equivalent to a 1-to-1 ratio with a 1.5 catch-all. It just seems like the industry standard. That's a good thought process. I've thought about doing a video breaking down like the Freedom Unlimited versus the other 2 all catch-all cards and how you use them, considering Hyatt and all that. Is 1.5 actually greater than 2 in some situations? Yuri points out that City has Cutter, which is an Avios. That is true. All 5 of the big ones have at least one Avios program, so you can backdoor into any of them. Critical Chris uses the AAA Travel Advantage Visa issued by Comenity to get the 5% back on gas. They also have 5% back on groceries, Daily Advantage Visa. So you can hold one card or the other, not both. Sounds like you're a cash back kind of guy, Critical Chris. All right, let's keep going here. I'll take a brief check of the tip jar. It is empty so far. So those were the 3 fully unique transfer partners. All right, now we're going to talk about the semi-unique transfer partners, and there are 4 of them: Ava Air, Turkish Airlines, Wyndham, and I Prefer. So these only belong to Capital One plus one other of the big 5. Ava and Turkish, I don't really care yet. With Ava, I'm not flying to Asia. I don't know of any sweet spots that are so unique, repeatable, and compelling that I'm thinking like, oh, I gotta have them. Again, there's always going to be a sweet spot somewhere. Someone's going to tell me I can fly from Mexico City to Taipei for $40,000 and it's a great value. And maybe that's true, but I'd like to get to Asia someday, but that's probably at least 5 years away for me. Again, mostly a domestic traveler. Turkish, I'm aware that the whole backdoor, call them, get a United flight for 12,500 points exists, but that was devalued a little. It used to be 10,000. 12,500 is still good. B, limited availability as United releases fewer and fewer award flights to partners is an issue. And C, I've heard Turkish is just a nightmare if you have to cancel or change. So I'm not sure I want to dive into Turkish as a transfer partner yet. Wyndham, meh. I mean, it's 1-to-1 from there over to Wyndham. Of course, Wyndham's partnership with Vacasa has completely been destroyed. As far as I know, they still have their cottages with cottages.com over the United Kingdom, which that kind of excites me. I put bonus in parentheses because if they had a good transfer bonus, like 30% or 40%, then I would be maybe interested in sending over to Wyndham. That does fit my use case at least some, not a lot, but some. But I also said I could just use Citi. Citi has Wyndham at 1-to-1 too. I also have the Wyndham Earner Business card, so I'm going to get 8x on gas there. I'm not looking to add to my Wyndham portfolio right now, but if I did, there's nothing super special about Capital One as a way to get them. And then I Prefer, it only transfers 1-to-2. Citi transfers 1-to-4. So that's kind of a disappointment. Now, if they had some massive transfer bonus or somehow I stumbled into a truckload of Capital One miles, then it might be worth it. Now, we all know the sign-up bonus makes everything worthwhile. If I get that Venture 1 card for player 2 and get 40,000 points, that's 40,000 points. That's a, factor in the $100 coupon. That's a 50% return on spend. So that's a good deal. There's nothing wrong with that. 86 people on board. Let's see if we can up that a little more. Do you think we can clear 90? Any chance we can clear 100? 103 or 105, depending on who you ask, is my all-time maximum for concurrent viewers. More comments to catch up on here. Yuri points out that I can book Latam via JAL ? Yuri says Turkish was pretty good. Ava is pretty good, but Citi has Ava at 1-to-! 1-to-1. So that must be the one other transfer partner. So yeah, was it Matt? Somebody said something like Capital One is the minor league Citi. Kind of feels that way in terms of transfer partners. Yuri says United on Turkish was 7.5, then 10K. Not sure if it was devalued again. I might have my numbers wrong, but the part about United releasing fewer flights to partners is definitely true, right? Vincent said, I used most of my Capital One miles for Turkish. I noticed you said used past tense, Vincent. Are you still building an arsenal of Capital One miles? Do you have a reason to? KC-113 drops $20 in the bucket for the Lego Fund. Celebrate, celebrate. Oh, thank you so much. So let's see, we had $8. Now we're up to $28. Let's just round that off to the 29. So we got $100 to go from this point forward for me to get that Lego set. I might carry it forward into future weeks. We'll see. Did I say celebrate? Celebrate, celebrate. There, I definitely said it now. New Again says Qatar transfers to Avios link doesn't always work. Annoying. That is annoying. Yuri says United is widely available on Life Miles. Life Miles is not Turkish, though. Life Miles is Avianca. More than on Turkish. Yes, thank you. I'll keep going here. Like I said, there's always going to be a use case out there. You know, you can fly from Guatemala to Mongolia for only 37,000 points of business class on this weird transfer partner arbitrage that opens 3 days a year in February. All right, so those are the semi-unique partners. Now we'll take a look at everyone else, the promiscuous partners. And I made this graphic with the size of the logo roughly proportionate to how much I'm interested. I'm not sure about Choice because they have a really wide logo, so it didn't quite fit. But like when we look at the little ones here, Avianca, Singapore, Etihad, JetBlue, because of that terrible 5-to-3 ratio, Aeromexico, Cathay, and Emirates. And did we have a data point that Emirates transfer ratio is going down? We did. It's going down to 4-to-3 starting next year. That would make it even smaller. I gotta edit this here. There we go. Even less interest. Just none of those really excite me as a primarily domestic flyer. JetBlue could, like if I was going to the Caribbean, if I needed to fly to the East Coast, switch airlines, then take it to the Caribbean. Maybe, but at a 5-to-3 ratio? Nah. Okay. And then I would say moderate interest from Choice, British, Qantas, and Virgin, not considering bonuses or just ratios, but just what I might use. And then a fairly high interest from Air Canada and Flying Blue, because I've used those before. The Flying Blue interest is more hypothetical than anything else, because I think I still have 80,000 Flying Blue miles from my failed Denmark expedition. So I was going to go to Denmark as like a 3 to 5 day rip trip once, and it fell through. I wasn't able to go. I'd already transferred the points over to Flying Blue. Had like 150,000 points trapped over there. I used about half of them this last summer for my intra-European flights. So I don't really need a lot of Flying Blue miles, but in a hypothetical sense, it kind of interests me. That's of their promiscuous partners. So let's put this together a little more here. And I said, why? If everyone else has them, you know, if I can get this on 3 of the big 5 and I have all 5, what is special about Capital One? So of the ones I even kind of care about, Flying Blue, Wyndham, Qantas, and British, and I put a little asterisk next to British because they're an Avios, and you can, you know, an Avios is an Avios and Avios. And I prefer, and Choice, anything I can do with Capital One, Citi can do better, or at least equal. So the grouping on the left, Flying Blue, Wyndham, Qantas, British, they all have the same transfer ratio. Those are all 1-to-1. Now I realize Citi has Qatar and Capital One has British. And somebody said in the comments that the Qatar moving over is a little wonky sometimes, so I can't say for sure. That's why I put an asterisk. But hypothetically, you should be able to use Avios to British to Qatar. You should be able to go Avios to Qatar to British. So functionally, I'm going to say those are the same thing. Of those on the right, I prefer and Choice, Citi is twice as good. So with I prefer, Capital One transfers 1-to-2, Citi transfers 1-to-4. Choice Hotel with Capital One transfers 1-to-1, lame. City transfers 1 to 2. So it's like somebody else said earlier, it kind of feels like Capital One's transfer partners are the minor league City transfer partners. Hopefully I've made a lot of people mad here. We've got a lot of comments to catch up on. 95 people are on board. Hey, keep clicking the thumbs up button. We might hit double digits. QC Man wants to know, by the way, how you doing, Quality Control Man? Haven't seen you in a little bit. No, I have seen you a little bit. Here's a good question. Have you thought of how you use the $100 Savor coupon? Since you'll get 5% back, it would be useful for $100 off a rental car. Yeah, but somebody told me that it only works if you pay the excess with that card. So I'd have to put a car rental on a Savor, which I really don't want to. I'm looking at it like this. If I use it, great. If not, oh well. I still got $200 in cash, plus I have the card now. I've been wanting the card for a while for emotional reasons. I wanted to complete my Capital One duo, even though I'm kind of heading down the path of bashing Capital One a little bit here. So what I will probably use it for is like an airport hotel. Like, let's say I fly back from Albuquerque, next October. And after leaving my really cool Airbnb or weight loss tent in the desert or whatever, I have to stay at a Wingate by Wyndham for one night, and it's only $89. I'll just use my $100 coupon on that. Something like that. Yuri says ALL transfer from Capital One, I think, is the highest together with Mesa. All others are even lower. Okay, well, if I was interested in a core live limitless, that might be a thing. Maybe it's wonderful and someone will talk me into it, but I haven't got into them yet. QC Man says, if you could have used your Capital One points for your Aeroplan 1.625 travel racer trick, that Air Canada logo would be over half the screen. Yes, it would. And this is a strange point, Quality Control Man, because the terms and conditions of the Aeroplan card says you can only pay yourself back with miles earned on the card itself or transferred from Chase. You're not allowed to move them over from Capital One or Amex and then use them for pay yourself back. Last summer, I moved something like 50,000 Capital One points over to Air Canada to help me to book an actual flight, the Lufthansa flight we used to fly home. It went into my pool of points with Aeroplan, and then I used it right away to book that flight. And what was left in the pool was, in theory, what came over from Chase, and I earned on the Aeroplan card. But how do you know? It's like you have a glass of water. These are the points you are allowed to use, and you're going to pour in some points from Capital One. It's like, now, you're only allowed to drink today the water that came from Capital One. It's like, I'll only drink I'll drink all the Capital One water, so the only water that's left is Chase water. There we go. I only drank Capital One molecules. It's like, once it goes in, it's not like these points are from Capital One and these are from Chase. So obviously the enforcement mechanism there is looking for abuse. If I transferred in 500,000 Capital One miles and then use it on pay yourself back, that would be abusive, obviously. But I think one time I transferred over like 10,000 Capital One miles or Amex miles with thought about using it for something, didn't, then just left it in the pot. Like, little itty bitty amounts probably won't matter. But I also don't want to push the envelope because I love that Aeroplan trick. I don't want to get in trouble for it. Cesar is here. Mi hermano, Doug. Sorry I'm late. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, hermano. I'm glad you're here. Better late than never. Sleepy Rod says, I wish the ease of earning an ecosystem points was taken into account when factoring their value. Yes, I agree. City and Wells are greater points, are more valuable than Capital One, but City Wells points are harder to earn. I don't feel like they're harder to earn, but I can see why some people, especially if you use lots and lots of Capital One offers, feel that way. Let's not forget Capital One is allergic to transfer bonuses. Yeah, I mentioned like if Wyndham had a transfer bonus, I think a 20% transfer bonus from Capital One to Wyndham was like one of their last transfer bonuses, and that was almost a year ago. Yuri says, City points are the best right now. Scott S. says, if you are a Major League Baseball fan, Capital One's tickets are great value. This is the most important one for me, anywhere from 2 to 3 cents per points for those tickets. You make a really good point. I do know they have those awesome Major League Baseball deals where you can sit like right behind home plate. They also have some fun value on minor league baseball. In fact, I've looked into that before. Like if I go to Clinton, Iowa and want to watch the Lumber Kings again, you know, I think it's as cheap as like 2,000 points or something like that. Cesar says city transfer partners compete with the big boys. Capital One and Wells Fargo are behind. Arizona Fox says good morning, everyone. Yuri says I'm interested in flying to South America on Latam. I get that. KRS 1905 says, I like the upside down Chase Sapphire logo. Some people use Qantas miles for American Airlines redemptions. Yeah, that's why I had them over here in my, like, you know, I'm kind of interested in Qantas. It's like, it's on the list. I kind of care about it. I've never actually used them for American, but I have checked them multiple times. There have been a couple times there was like availability in Qantas that wasn't available on British for American. The using British to book American trick is not as good as it used to be. It seems like British has raised the rates on that. What I used to be able to get for 25 or 30,000 British points is now costing 50 to 60,000. And that was even before the 10% announcement earlier today. Sleepy Rod says, in theory, built and city points are the most valuable right now, but what good are they if I can't accumulate any fast enough to make a redemption? Excellent point. He says, harder built points, but it's easier in city points. Depends if you're into shenanigans or not. Vincent says, to Sleepy Rod, Capital One miles aren't easy to earn in a fast way. I think you can probably earn anything with certain caveats in a fast way. Some comments here from Critical Chris on rebuilding credit with a platinum card. I'm glad to hear about that. He later did a product change to a Capital One Quicksilver. My credit limit's still only $600. It's his hypothetical understanding that because his credit profile at the time opened that platinum card had been permanently classified into a higher risk bucket of card holders. Yeah, lots of people have a theory about bucketing and those kind of things. One good thing, though, that is, at least this happened to me, when I applied for Timmy and got the Capital One Venture X, they did let me move credit from Timmy over to Carl. Critical Chris also says, it's my understanding that even if I did a product change with Capital One Venture, I'd still be assigned a paltry credit limit to a high risk. What do y'all think? I've heard lots of people say that. Some people say that's a myth. Some people swear by it, and I don't know where I fall on that. Okay, I'll Be Frank is here. Hey, how you doing, I'll Be Frank? I'm new here. I only have the Venture X for the lounges, but the changes mean my family can't use them for free. So we will see. QC Man asks, are the Lumber Kings filled with MLB or is it independent? I think it's independent. It's like a wooden bat league. It's like the minorest of minor leagues. Yuri says Qantas is good for redemptions on El Al. That's a good point. Someday when things calm down a bit, I'd love to go to Israel. DEM says, I flew Miami to Buenos Aires on Latam, similar to a Delta experience. It was great. D Green says, Capital One Entertainment, Capital One Dining are awesome programs, in my opinion. I purchased most sports tickets using Capital One Entertainment. They have the best price plus 8% cash back with Savor. That's good to know. If I ever went out and did stuff, I'm sure that would be excellent. Unfortunately, I can't get a lot of value about looking at monuments and cemeteries. Fortunately, it's free. DEM says it depends on the cards you have. City cards have excellent multipliers. Built now has Rakuten, at least for now. Sleepy Rod says, too, Vincent, Capital Ones are easier to earn than City Wells if you take advantage of some of the lucrative Capital One offers available as of late. Okay, 93 people on board. Thanks to those of you who clicked thumbs up and dropped a donation. I really appreciate it. I'm going to keep going with the main event here. So we kind of hit on this. Inferior twins. So assuming I have the setup, and I do, and I realize you might say, well, but Doug, if you get into a City setup, you have to get like these other cards and stuff and pay an annual fee. That's true, but I have City anyway because I want it for American, I prefer, etc. I can get 2x on everything with the Venture X. I can get 2x on everything with the City Double Cash. Before somebody says, but what about international? Well, I don't travel international that much, and when I do, I'll just bring my Venture X. That's fine. Someone will say, well, you can get 3x on dining and grocery with your Savor card. And I will point out, I can get 3x on dining and grocery with the Strata Premier. I don't actually have the Strata Premier right now. I have the Strata, but I do plan to upgrade when I get my whole strategy in place. And then I put 2 little custom caches down there for customized usage, strategery, hitting a specific category 1 month, whatever. If you're going to spend $500 on restaurants, maybe you want to use a custom cache 1 month. But I feel like when you put all that together, the Capital One Duo kind of is inferior, maybe smells a little bit. It doesn't really offer that much. It really does feel like minor league City, although City does have pretty bad customer service with the possible exception of the Strata Elite. Oops, that button went way too fast. So there are 2 exceptions that I have spotted so far, and that's Air Canada and Japan Airlines. So how much excitement is there? Because these are programs that I have some degree of interest in that you can't get through Citi. Well, I have Chase, I have Amex, so Air Canada doesn't offer a lot of excitement. Yes, I used some Air Canada from Capital One to fund my Lufthansa flight, and that was great, but that's doing something like that again is probably a ways down the road. As Quality Control Man pointed out, you're technically not allowed to use your Capital One Air Canada miles to fund your Aeroplan Caravan, so I'd put the excitement for using Capital One miles on Air Canada around 30%. Not that exciting. Japan Airlines, like I said, there are a couple hypothetical sweet spots that I can't get anywhere else. So that excites me a little bit more, but none of those are probably really in my wheelhouse right now. I don't even remember what alliance they're a part of. Let me quickly pull that up here before I say something stupid. Japan Airlines is in the One World Alliance. So we're talking American if I'm flying domestic, or in theory, Alaska. So I did see the chart, and because it's a fixed chart, there could be some situations where a domestic route under like 4,000 miles is really expensive. Maybe going with JAL would be better. So I'll say 45 to 50% excitement, but not that much. Hey, I briefly saw 100 people on board. Oh, there it is again. So thank you so much. Keep clicking thumbs up. We'll see if we can clear 105. If anybody sees more than 105 people simultaneously, by all means, please let me know. Now, another factor to consider is Capital One does have the lounge network through their Venture X. Enjoy access to Capital One lounges and landings. Let's think about where these are. I don't have it memorized, so I might need a little help from the audience. Originally, they were only in Dallas, and then they added 2 more Ds, Dulles and Denver. So Dallas, Dulles, Washington Dulles, and Denver had the 3 originals. They added a Capital One landing at Washington Reagan, which we went to last summer. My wife said it was actually her favorite lounge. She likes, having like an assigned seat and then just having food brought to you instead of like, the more traditional lounge. And it wasn't very busy the day we went. Maybe that was part of a factor. Where are they expanding to? Are they expanding to Las Vegas? Am I remembering that correctly? New York LaGuardia, right? They're either there or they will be soon. Yeah. Somebody will tell me. So how worth it is it to keep for the lounges? I'm going to put a pretty decent amount of weight on that. I think it is probably worth it for the lounges, at least in a general sense. So before you say, but this can be good, I'm going to use the argument, but Doug, don't you know about using Etihad to book flights from Buenos Aires to Jakarta, Indonesia via the Maldives? Before you say something like that, I want you to remember opportunity cost. So don't want to get too far into this, but every dollar I spend on Capital One is money that I'm not spending elsewhere. So I'm not saying Capital One is a bad program. I'm not saying there aren't use cases. I'm not saying the lounges are bad. I'm not saying the cards are bad. I'm not saying Capital One shopping is bad or Capital One earning methods are bad. I'm just saying, for me, I really like corn. There is some opportunity cost there where I could be putting this spend on Chase, 3x on restaurants with every card. I could be putting it on and using that for Hyatt or my Aeroplan Caravan. I could be putting it over on City at 3x on the Strata Premier and getting American or a much better rate on I Prefer or a much better rate on Choice. So again, it's not that it's bad. I took my venture card to CVS Pharmacy and bought an Amazon gift card. Obviously, I think it's good some of the time, but there's an opportunity cost because you have to pick good, better, best. If you have 3 good options, you want the most value, not just decent value. Whatever I earn here, I'm not earning somewhere else with more options. And to be candid, I feel like Chase has more options and City has more options. Secondly, I'm not canceling either card. I'm just not spending on them. So I think that's kind of where I've come down. I'm going to keep my Savor. I'm going to keep my Capital One Venture X. I will spend on my Savor until just with dining or groceries until I hit that $500 sign-up bonus, collect my $200. And after I have a once I get a City double cash, which I haven't done yet, but I will soon, so probably early next year, I'm going to be switching my spend away from Capital One Venture X over to the City double cash. And once I have that in place, I've got dining options with Chase or City that are just as good. I've got grocery options with City that are, or Aeroplan that's just as good. I've got gas options with City that's just as good. I've got other cards that have 0% interest. Now the Savor actually has 0% interest for the first year, so that's good. I like that. Thumbs up. But once I get everything in place come February, March, April, the Savor and the Venture X are going to go into the sock drawer or actually my travel wallet. They'll become my traveling cards because they both have no foreign transaction fee and they're super simple. I don't travel enough to really earn lots of points on travel. So if I only get 2x on a gas station instead of 3x, oh well. Like when I filled up in Puerto Rico one time, $25, I'm losing out on 25 points by using my Venture X instead of my City Strata Premier. At 1 cent per point, that's 25 cents. At 3 cents per point, that's 75 cents. I'm not going to get all worked up about losing out on 75 cents when I'm on vacation. So they're going to become my travel duo. They're going to come out and be spent when I'm on vacation in New Mexico or West Virginia or Florida or Texas or New York or wherever. So that's kind of what I'm thinking my Capital One setup is going to become. They're just for when I travel. And then the one-offs like Capital One spending offers or, some great coupon or something like that. And all I have to do is use the coupon once per year for at least $300 in the portal, and it pretty much pays for itself. So on a net basis, it's close enough to no annual fee to keep me happy and keep it in the drawer somewhere for future opportunities. So where does Capital One fit in my building blocks of my portfolio? I feel like it's kind of that block down and off to the right. See, it's missing a peg here. It's just, it just doesn't really fit anywhere. I'm not going to get rid of it, but it's off to the side, waiting to be used someday when it can kind of get its act together. So to answer the question, where does Capital One fit? It doesn't really fit in my portfolio anywhere. And that concludes the main event. All right, let's see how many people I ticked off here and jump back into the comments. Oh, I'm way behind. Okay, way behind. Okay. Dem says I flew Miami to Buenos Aires on LATAM. Oh, yeah, we already heard that. We talked about that. We talked about that. We talked about that. I think Sleepy Rod says, or no, Vincent says to Sleepy Rod, I've only applied for 2 Capital One cards ever, the Venture X and Savor. I downgrade the Venture X to a Venture One. Hey, very similar to me. Yuri says, I've watched a few videos about Latam Biz. It seems to me that AA is better. SEAND99X says, top of the morning to you, Doug. Always look forward to your lives. Good to see you, Sean. How you doing? And KRS says, not all city cards transfer at the same rate, so you need one of their premium cards for the highest transfer rates. Good point. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm assuming before I do any transferring on city, I will have either the Strata Elite or the Strata Premier, one of the two. Some more comments on Latam. Okay. Let's see. QC Man asked this question. You're upgrading to the Strata Premier, not applying for the sub. Are you inside of 48 months for your last sub? Yes, I am. I'm still inside 48 months. So what I'm thinking I will do is I will take a shot at the Strata Elite and sign up for that. So then I wouldn't need the Strata Premier for a while. The Strata Premier is where I will end up at. If I have the combination of a Strata plus the Strata Elite, I have everything that I need. Then I would have to either apply for the double cash separately or product change one of my custom caches to a double cache. So we'll see. Or maybe I'll just not worry too much about the 3x on gas and grocery with the Strata Premier for the first year and just work on other things for that. I would have grocery over my Capital One. So I've got a lot of options there. Having the Strata Elite for a year could kind of screw up my ideal wallet, but I think the 100,000 point sign-up bonus would more than offset what happens with my wallet spend. More comments on Latam. Sleepy Rod says, I've earned 70,000 points through Cap One offers this year. In order for me to earn the same amount, City, I have to spend for like a year on 7 custom caches. Wow. Well, then for you, it's the exact opposite. City is the minor league of Capital One. It's just never been a thing for me. What kind of stores are you shopping at, Sleepy Rod? Give me 3 or 4 examples. KC113 says, if anyone else donates to Lego Fund, I'll match all donations. Whoa. Well, thank you very much. That's great to know. So if you're coming in late, we were talking earlier, the theme of the day kind of compared like ecosystems and Capital One to building blocks like Legos. And I said right before the bathroom break that my favorite all-time set was the Knight's Castle. Bride Jack went out and found a set that's new and very similar for $129. And I said, if I get $129 from this point forward, not retroactive, I will use my YouTube money to buy that. And I realize YouTube takes a cut, but close enough. I'll use some of my other money. And so far I've had about $29 donated, so about $100 to go. Checking the tip jar real quick to make sure nothing's over there. Nope. Thank you for the generous offer, Casey. Flying Ryan says, good morning. I just changed an old US Bank L2 Gotard to a Connect for no annual fee party pass backup. Yeah, it gets 4 of those per year. That's awesome. Good to see you on board, Ryan. Somewhere during the live stream, I couldn't remember what Alliance JAL was a part of, and KRS says One World. That's correct. Yuri G says, I earned quite a bit on Capital One offers and almost nothing on their cards. Tio says, I have that City 4-card setup, but also the AA Advantage Platinum. I plan on downgrading my son's AA Advantage to another custom cache if they let me. New Again says, I go through a lot of points a year. Amex is number 1. Chase is a nice compliment, but you got to stay under 524, which is easy when paired with Amex. Can't do nothing with City unless I have 10 custom caches. KRS says, the new Capital One lounges are JFK, LaGuardia, and Los Angeles. No, Las Vegas. I'm sorry. Is the Las Vegas one open yet? Yuri earns more from a single thank you MasterCard than from 10 custom caches. Yeah, but that card's not open to new applicants. That doesn't count. Partially kidding. QC says, I think the Capital One Lounge is already open in Vegas. It'll be a landing in LaGuardia. And so where did I go? Did I go to the... I must have gone to the one in JFK then. D Green says Capital One Lounge in Las Vegas is already open. The landing at LaGuardia is opening soon. I like the landing concept. Critical Chris says, I have 3 no annual fee custom caches that pay 5% cash back. I'm working on signing up for 7 of them. Sleepy Rod says, yeah, I mean, once I use my city sub points, I'm going to have to work for like a year and a half to earn a sizable amount of city points with 7 custom caches. Sounds fun, I guess. And I will admit I'm somewhat hypocritical. Applying for lots of sign-up bonuses is always going to beat the ideal wallet. Critical Chris says, who else here has the highest aggregation of annual fees? I met this woman who says she pays over $7,000 a year in annual fees. Mind exploding scared cat. Yuri earns around $1 million per year, and it doesn't include subs. Sears card, yes, primarily. Half of that is the Sears card. DEM says, City's my primary ecosystem too. I missed the Sears card, though, highly underrated. Matt clarifies that Capital One has lounges at Dallas, Fort Worth, Denver, JFK, Dulles, and Las Vegas, landings at Reagan, and soon LaGuardia. The landing at Reagan is open. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. That's what you said. Landings at Reagan and soon LaGuardia. I'm sorry about that. Oh, boy. I scrolled too far. Oh, my word. We've got a lot of comments here. I'm not going to be able to read every single one of them. I apologize. Sleepy Rod says, Dugroz, throughout your own video, you did the math and calculated if you went all in on City, you'd earn around 60,000 points a year, which is like 1 sub. City points are not fast and easy to earn, in my opinion. You are correct if comparing it to a sub. If comparing it to only everyday spend, then City earns faster than any other cards that I have access to, or at least pretty darn close. So if you're accusing me of being hypocritical, you're right. I would be better served to get like 4 or 5 sign-up bonuses per year. I always have this dilemma as a YouTube content creator. If I come on board and make a video that says, how to earn the most points, get lots of sign-up bonuses, and remember, may your spending be frugal and your points be plenteous, no one's going to watch my videos. So I have to talk about everyday spend, even though we all know subs are where it's at. And if you can't do subs, then you need to be doing some sort of strategery or min-maxing or category shifting or Capital One offers or something along those lines. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm probably locked out of subs on Capital One at this point in any meaningful way. I should probably be having Mrs. Dugroz doing the Venture One thing. Matt says, national equals Reagan. I prefer national. Yep. I knew what you mean. I may have just said it wrong, and I apologize if I did. Here in Des Moines, you don't have a choice. You either fly direct to Reagan or not at all. So he told me Prestige is going to be converted to a CSE next year. Oh, that would suck hard. I hope that's not true. Okay, you mentioned that. I heard 27. Let's see. 27 what? 27. How are we doing in the Castle Fund? It looks like there's some donations coming, but as of this comments posting, we still had $100 to go. Points Dexter 73 says, I'm with you. Capital One is on the way out for me and shifting over to City. Attaboy. Deb says, if they do convert my Prestige, which I only pay... Oh, okay, I misunderstood. Let's back up, Yuri. Prestige and Premier are 2 different things. So Prestige is the old grandfathered card that you have, Rewards Master has, some other people have, that gets the really good version of Priority Pass, earns 5x on dining and some other stuff. So that's not a surprise. I thought you meant the Premier is converting to the Strata Elite. Okay. It's a bummer for all of you guys, but it's really not unexpected. Okay. And DEM says if that happens, I'll just convert my current CSC to another custom cache. KRS says, I'm probably going to wait for Capital One's next JAL transfer bonus before I move all of my miles. With the Savor VentureX Capital One offers, I'm hoping to earn 250,000 Capital One miles a year. That would be pretty awesome. What are you spending this money on? I'm still asking people, what are all these Capital One offers coming from? Do you guys spend like $7,000 a year at Maurice's or something? YouTube Experiment says, I'm driving home but listening to the live stream. DEM says, I'm going to a restaurant for dinner tonight, and it's a Rakuten dining partner plus city nights plus 5x Rakuten. That's 11x. If you get caught eating lunch in New York City, just make sure it's dinner, not lunch. Warren Luntz, don't think we've met. Good to see you, Warren. Freedom! Had a double cash forever, but my rookie year with points and miles. Got the Venture X and Savor early and has been the gateway and to secure them early in the journey. Again, I'm not putting down the Venture X or Savor, but when you get to the point where you have all the ecosystems, or at least like 4 out of 5, it's hard to kind of back off. DEM worked at City Private Bank for about 13 years. Awesome. City Sears / Thank You MasterCard is essentially the custom cash. Yes, I'm on Team Cashback, says Critical Chris. Why? Well, it does come down to total level of spending against the annual fees. Yes, also remember the opportunity cost. Good point. If I accumulate points and miles to buy stuff, flights, instead of actual cash, like for my cash back, I'm losing out on an opportunity to earn even more cash back on those purchases. That's absolutely true, and you always have to balance that with value. So, like, you know, oh, if I spend money on travel, I'll earn 10x points. Yeah, but if it's 10x and you're spending cash, that's the equivalent of like 1.1. You know, say you earn 3x on that, 1.3, you know, whereas if I go out and get 3 cents per point with Hyatt or 4 cents per point with Hyatt, like I'm doing at the Dunes this coming September, ain't no way cashback beats that. But if you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you know I have to pay for everything, including the cash stuff. So I am a hybrid person. I use some points, some cash, and you have to. Of the flight stuff, do the math yourself if you haven't already. Oh, trust me, I've done the math. QCMS says, you went to the Sapphire Lounge in LaGuardia, Doug, not Capital One. I remember the pop-up live. Okay, thank you. I'm glad my fans remember more about my travel than I do. Thank you for clarifying all of that. Does Sapphire let you... How did I get my whole family in? I thought they only allowed 2 guests, but I had 4 people. Or is it one of those things where once per year you can get in on priority pass? So I had my, that's it. I had my wife use her priority pass. Me and the 2 boys went in on the Sapphire. There we go. Thank you. D Green says, Capital offers are great for some strategery. I've earned about 75,000 miles this year for very little effort. What stores? Fleet easily drops $9.99 for the Lego Fund, but even more, thank you for the hard work and research. You're welcome. Celebrate, celebrate. Thank you so much, Fleet. And I think somebody's going to be matching that pretty soon. But let's keep going here. So now we're down to $90 left on the Lego Fund. I don't shop at overpriced Sears after Google search. There's only like 8 Sears left. I don't think you have to shop at Sears to use the Sears card. If you have a City double cash, open up a no annual fee Wells Fargo active cash for 2% back on anything, then probably change your double cash to a custom cash. I already have the 2% on everything business card from Wells Fargo, and I have me as player 1 an autograph and a Golden Ponies card, so I can already do that. Nobody shops at Sears, says DEM. Aren't they all closed? I don't know. There it is. KC113 drops the Lego Fund donation match on Fleets, $9.99. Celebrate, celebrate. All right, $80 to go. Thank you so much, KC. No one gets value at a Sears card at Sears. Critical wants to know, does anybody have a U.S. Bank Kroger rewards card? That's 5% back on mobile wallets. This is up $3K per year. Yes, no annual fee. It is capped. A cap of $3,000 a year just doesn't excite me. Matt says, City is converting the Prestige to a CSE. Cue my Joker laugh. Why must you have schadenfreude for the suffering of others, Matt? New Again says, you can be frugal and churn subs. That's SOP. I'm very frugal. SOP, SOP, SOP. What does SOP mean? I feel like I should know this one. Standard operating procedure. Yes, thank you. Okay, that's my standard operating procedure. Yeah, I'm very frugal and churn subs too. Like I said, I am going to talk a lot about everyday spend, but you notice I am getting subs. You want to know what I got subs on this year? I'll pull up my spreadsheet and we'll just go over that together just to prove that I'm a honest hypocrite. Just this year, in January, my wife opened a Chase Inc. Business Unlimited. Also in January, my wife opened her Aeroplan card. My wife opened the Amex Blue Business Cash in February. US Bank Triple Cash Rewards, the second time I've gotten it, I opened in June. My wife opened a Sapphire Preferred with a P back in August. I did my Hail Mary and somehow it worked. Got my third Chase Inc. Business Unlimited in September. And at the exact same time, I got the Marriott Bonvoy Boundless, and now I have the Capital One Savor, and I'm working on that. So in our household, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 subs in a year so far, year to date. And I might do the City Strata Elite before the end of the year to double dip. I haven't decided on that. So yeah, I like subs too, lest anybody question my liking of subs. But I know you're a big fan, so thanks again, New Again. DEM says, I've had this card since it came out, the oldest card in my setup. All right. I appreciate your every person comment. Hey, yeah, we're on the same page. We're on the same page. DMs was part of the focus group that hoed with the rollout. Helped. Are you referring to the Sears card? Vincent says, do you think City would also force convert Aviator Silver to Globe? I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry, Vincent. I don't really follow the AA cards enough to give an opinion. I'll say yes, just for the sake of taking an opinion. Critical Chris says, I'm from DC and have never stopped calling it National. Gotcha. Gentleman Explorer comes in and drops $40. The Ghost of Christmas Past. Celebrate. That's awesome. I don't know if you want this to go towards the Lego Fund, but I did say all donations from this point. So whether or not it's your intent, that's what it's going for. So we went from 100, we had 10. It was matched. That took it down to 80. So now we're down to 40 to go. So if that match comes through, we're going to be done. Let's just skip ahead and take a look. KC113 says we did it. You're right. Celebrate. All right. I got to go out and find it now. So let's go ahead and look. Lego Knights Castle. Images. Here it is. Share this tab. Pop it up. Yes, I accept. Okay, there it is. Medieval Horse Knights Castle. Do they? I can't remember what Brian said. Do they not have the equivalent of the King's Castle? Oh, here it is. Oh, that's this is on eBay and it's used. That's an oldie. Look, you can just tell that's from the 80s. Yeah, that's a little too much for my blood. Here's Lego Knights Castle set 1035. This looks like an unopened one from the 80s or 90s. So that is a little too rich for me. Man, how do people have these sets from like the 80s unopened? I guess it doesn't say it's unopened. This says Knights Castle at Walmart. Lions Knights Castle. Okay. That's the one I really want. Don't get me wrong. The Knights Castle is pretty cool too. The Horse Knights Castle, not the Lion Knights Castle. That's what the Lion Knights looks like. $300 or something like that. Or no, not $300. What'd they say? $700. Yeah, but this one's cool. This is cool. It's cool. Yeah, it's cool, man. I'll get it. All right, maybe someday in the future we can do like the big one, the $700 one or whatever it is. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that, KC113. Way to be a big-time donor. All right, gentleman says, well done, sir. Legos for Doug. QC Man says, I'm thinking of a different live, the one where you missed your Delta flight. I actually missed the live you're talking about, but if you already had the CSR, you'd get 3 in with that and 1 with another. Yeah, we missed our Delta flight going Des Moines to LaGuardia. But instead I missed no. You're talking about when I missed the flight at LaGuardia. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Again, some of my fans are better remembering than I do with another party pass card. Yeah, that I was all by myself with that one, so that wasn't a big deal. You're right. It was a chase in both situations. Already saw that one. Legos for Doug, says Quality Control Man. Matt says, it doesn't seem worth it with that conversion, but probably. The Prestige. Okay, so DEM was part of the focus group for the Prestige card. Hey, you've been around the block a couple times, Prestige. You must be probably my age. Critical Chris says, I have a Discover in the back of my drawer with an 18,000 limit that I rarely use. Now that they've been acquired by Capital One, what happens to my limit? Will the product change me to Capital One? Nobody knows. What I would do if I were you is, since all Discover cards are no annual fee, just hold on to it and see what happens in a year or two. Hopefully it becomes a Capital One card. It shows up under your app, and then you can move credit limit over to that other one. D Green says, for example, earlier this year, there was a Capital One offer to earn 60,000 miles for a Motley Fool subscription. The cost was $300, so that's functionally buying miles at a half penny each. I'm a buyer of Capital One miles at that price. Well, absolutely, because even if all you do is Travel Eraser, you're doubling your value. We shall double our efforts. All right, I'm going to have to keep an eye out for that kind of stuff. Are those Capital One offers targeted? Fleet says, this is my favorite YouTube Points and Miles community. Oh, awesome. Thanks, Fleet. I'm glad for it. Matt says, my schadenfreude is fueled by others' ridiculousness. Oh, okay. QC Matt says, you're a cookies acceptor. I'm a cookie rejector. Generally. Ian says, make sure you go through a portal for those Legos. If I'm getting them in the Lego store, I sure will. Actually, thank you very much, Ian. That is worthy of a screenshot. We're not going there. D Green says, that's a good deal. I have no idea what Motley Fool does. Doesn't matter if you're buying points for half penny each. DEM says, salty about all the chase nerfs. And Vincent says, to Fleet, Motley Fool is all about stock recommendations. It's like a website about stock recommendations. Okay, worth keeping an eye out then. Ian says, Lego via Rakuten is sometimes 10x or more. I'll probably want to get it on here before my next live stream, though. So I may not wait for the best possible offer. I might just hop on an offer. Okay, we got through all of that. What time is it? It is noon Central Time, so I got to wrap this up. But last week I didn't get to my comments, so this time I want to be sure to get to my community tab comments. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Every Friday, usually somewhere between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. Central Time, I will put a picture on my community tab here on YouTube, and I will also ask you to post any questions you may have. Oh, doggone it. I stopped sharing by accident. Let me pop this up. Sorry about that. This is the picture that I shared yesterday, and you're supposed to guess where the picture was taken. So let's go ahead and get into that now. Comments on this. Fleet easily says, Capital One is my primary points on mile system. I didn't learn about Chase 524 until I was around 424. So I'm actually LOL 24 until about 2028. Well, sorry about that. Obviously, if you jumped on Capital One and now you're locked out of Chase and you're locked out of City because of velocity, Capital One has to be your primary ecosystem. And with all my, I guess, poking holes in Capital One, again, I don't want to say they're a bad ecosystem, just there is an opportunity cost there. And for me, I think the opportunity cost is not worth putting most of my spend on Capital One. Ron Burns suggested this title, Capitalize with Capital One, spelled Capitolize. And myself and Fleet both said that would have been a great name. Unfortunately, he didn't know at the time I was going to be kind of bashing on Capital One, so I couldn't call it Capitalize. But the picture in the picture looks like some sort of Capitol building with an O, so get it? Capitalize on Capital One. Bob Travels gave this guess. You are standing outside of the state capital of the Cowboy State in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And I said, perfect, except for the last 5 words. Cowboy State in Cheyenne, Wyoming. It is a state capitol building. You're right, but you didn't nail the last part. All right, so several people actually got this one right, and you each get 1,000 Dugroz points. Yuri BSU, not the Yuri that's on board right now, but Yuri BSU SBU guessed the Illinois Capitol, and that is correct. It is the Illinois Capitol. Luke D. Johnson guessed the Illinois State Capitol building in Springfield, Illinois. Good. You are also correct, Luke. And Herr Muntz guessed the Illinois State Capitol building. So congratulations, Herr Muntz, Luke Johnson, and Yuri SBU. Each of you get 1,000 Dugroz points. There you go. Now, to be even more specific, Herr Muntz said that pick was taken on the southwest side of the Illinois Capitol building on the middle parking lot slots by the mosaic mural. Now, either he's stalking me or really good at guessing. So let's pull up a few more pictures to go over what he's talking about. So you can see here in the background, there's this tall conical tower. That is a Wyndham. So that probably gave him a clue. If I'm facing this way, we know where the Wyndham is relative to the building. That can tell that I am, in fact, on the southwest side. So that is correct. Here is a picture of the map view of the Capitol building, and he's right. I was in this parking lot down here. I think I'm just standing kind of in the middle. I picked a random spot to take the picture. There is a mosaic mural right over here, so he totally nailed it. Here's another picture of the Illinois Capitol building from the front with yours truly. And here's that really tall, ugly Wyndham Tower that I mentioned. This had to have been built like in the 70s or something. Now, when I went to Springfield a year ago, October, so not the most recent October, but a year before that, I stayed at the President Abraham Lincoln Hotel, which is a Hilton DoubleTree right across the street. You can see it right there. There's Abe Lincoln's picture just to the north, and across the street is the crappy, ugly Wyndham, which unfortunately has the tallest building in Springfield, Illinois. I did go across the street and look around, rode the elevator to the top. Since my visit, bad things have happened to that particular Wyndham. It got water damage when like the fire sprinklers went off by accident or something. And now if you go out to Google, it says temporarily closed. And if you try to book it on Wyndham, no matter what dates you type in, it says this property is unavailable for the dates selected. I went a full year out to December of 2026. So the Wyndham Springfield City Center is not in very good shape. If there's any folks out there from Central Illinois or who travel through Central Illinois, let me know all the juicy gossip of what's going through that hideous looking, but kind of cool in a weird retro way, Wyndham there in Central Illinois. But yes, congratulations to everyone who said I was in fact at the State Capitol building of Illinois. You were all correct. Now let's see if anybody put any interesting comments on here. Let's see. DEM says, sorry about all the chase nurse. Yeah, kind of stinks. QC Man guessed St. Paul's Cathedral. Good guess, but no. QC Man guessed London. Completely random. Wrong. Critical Chris says, I got you to say Capital One. Poop emoji. Tee hee hee. Good for you. Good for you. All right. Well, this is your last chance to drop a super donation, super sticker, super chat. Nobody used the tip jar today, as far as I can tell. Go over to the link in the URL if you want to find that, especially if you want to be anonymous or just have a gift that goes a little further. I'll add it to some sort of Lego fund if you give anything. So let's review who helped out today. Tom Graber gave 1 membership. Thank you. Studio TK dropped the 149 super sticker. John dropped 1 membership. Gentleman Explorer gave 5 memberships. Jimmy Duff gave $5. Mike Newland gave 20 memberships, which is just as good as $60. Thank you so much. QC Man gifted a membership. Ian gifted $2. QC Man $2. Ian another $2. Bry Jack $2. KC Man $20. Fleet Easily $9.99. KC came through with $9.99. Gentleman Explorer came through with $40, and KC another $40, knocking off me ability to buy that Lego castle. Altogether, KC gave 40 plus 10. That's 50, 60, 70. So yeah, thank you so much, KC-113. I really, 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 really appreciate that. Thank you so much. D Green says there's a similar hideously shaped hotel in Raleigh. It's a Holiday Inn, I believe. Seems to me like there is a ugly, cylindrical, conical in the capital of Missouri, which I think is Jefferson City. Let's go ahead and look that up. YouTube Experiment says, I wouldn't be surprised if City converts Prestige to a CSC. I just got home. Late comment, I know. That's all right. Did you see the World Cup yesterday? How could Gretzky mispronounce the country of Jordan? I did not. How did he pronounce it? How do you mispronounce Jordan? Jordan, maybe? That's what Citibank told me. Tio is thanking me. I appreciate it. I'm going to look this up real quick here. Jefferson City, Mo. Because I've thought about taking a rip trip to, oh, come on. I thought about taking a rip trip to Jefferson City, Missouri. I can ride Amtrak there, and it'll help me pick up at the state capitol. There it is right there. So is this showing on my screen? I need to bigonize it. It's kind of hard to see, but right here, it's a Hilton. We've got one of those kind of ugly, conical towered. Look at that. That just screams like 70s, doesn't it? Oh, and here's some lady looking out the window. That's pretty much exactly like what the Wyndham looked like up top, except it was in a lot worse shape. Yeah, so maybe if I get done visiting state capitals and I get done visiting presidential graves, I can visit all the weird 8-sided octagon conical cylindrical hotels that are 10 to 20 stories made in the 70s. Sleepy Rod says, do Wells Fargo next week? Maybe. I'll keep that in mind. A lot of times the topic doesn't really strike me until around Wednesday or Thursday. All right. Well, we're going to end it here. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate all of you, all 100 of you that watch concurrently, probably more than that if we count non-concurrent. You have my enduring thanks. And as always, may your spending be frugal and may your points be plenteous. Thanks. Oh, hold on. He said Jordan. He also mispronounced Caraco, but so did you. Well, that's a little more forgivable. It's got the C with the little tail hanging down. I have no idea how that's pronounced. But Jordan, he should have gotten. One of the countries is Jordan. Okay, anyway. Spending be frugal, points be plenteous. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.